All right, guys. It's 8 o'clock. I'm going to kind of just uh, start going a little bit. So, if you haven't been watching the series up until this point, what I'm doing is just taking the American states and Canadian provinces and kind of putting them in a competition with each other. And I'll be drawing from this bowl here. Has a bunch of numbers that each correspond to a different category that has to do with something geographical. Some things are really important, like economic and job type stuff, manufacturing, agriculture. Some are not that important at all, on purpose to make it kind of a little more equalizer kind of categories. So we started off with 64, like the big basketball tournament I think is going on tonight. So hopefully some of you guys have maybe this on with the game as well. I'm not sure who's playing tonight. I don't really care, but we're down to the final four. So the four that are still in this one are Minnesota and Hawaii is the first semifinal. And the other semifinal is North Carolina and Colorado. So these are the four states that are left. And no one for Canada made it this far. That's kind of the way it goes. Hawaii's the surprise of all of them because there's a lot of categories that go against Hawaii. Just they've kind of had a good luck of the draw. But they're all very well-rounded states. That's kind of the point of this competition, was to have things, who's well-rounded. You can't just be, Florida with nice winters and California with all, the stuff they got, Texas oil and, stuff. You can't just be one thing. You got to have a bunch of stuff. So these four places have a lot of things going for them. So I'm going to do the semifinal rounds first, and then I'll do some channel announcements. I got some pretty cool things I'd like to announce, and then do the finals after that. And then depending on how things are going, maybe do a Q&A after that, just seeing how long it takes. It's going to totally depend on which categories get drawn. I mean, if they're all ones that are subjective, those will be pretty easy. If they're ones that, if I get the crops category, it might be a while. That one takes probably the longest of all of them. So actually, let me grab my atlas real quick. I always have this thing nearby. I have like 3 of them in the house. There's always one close by. All right, so yeah, again, thank you guys for joining me. I know it's kind of a weird night and time to do a live stream, Tuesday evening. Kind of a strange time, but I wanted to do all of these videos within March. So I thought doing every 5 days in March would be easy to remember. So that's why we are doing this here. So I'll try to answer questions during the chat, or during the rounds, but I might not be able to get to a lot of them while I'm doing the research stuff. So yeah, I do appreciate again, you guys being here and any type of support. That's great, because I'm trying to do things a little bit differently than a lot of other channels do. So some of the announcements I make in between the rounds are going to be some of the stuff talking about that stuff. So all right, Joseph Ayers, thank you very much for the super chat. I do appreciate, I just really is humbling that people would, super chat and donate. It was really cool. So that's not why I'm doing YouTube. I mean, I love it. It's fun, but I do appreciate any of the support. So we are going to start. It's 8:04. Yeah, whatever. It's good enough. So if you're not here on time, you're going to miss the first few categories. But if you step away for a little bit, you miss stuff, you can always go back and rewind it, and it'll be up as soon as it's over. It'll be up to watch as a regular video. So Liz, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So let's start off with Minnesota versus Hawaii, and the finals are best 4 out of 7. So the first few categories are going to be, the first category to be drawn. So you guys get to see this live for the first time. The magic bowl with a chip in it. I did that. But these are all the numbers just folded up. I actually folded them all super crisp again for this to, so the ones that are a little more worn wouldn't get pulled up as much. So, all right, Minnesota versus Hawaii. Which of these bad boys is going to start off the night with a 1-0 lead. Got 65 here. So I got my list over here of what these all are. I should have memorized all of them by now, but I have not. All right, so 65 is the best overall music artists. And so Minnesota, Hawaii. I mean, Minnesota certainly is going to have more. You've got the big ones, Prince and Bob Dylan. Hold Steady, got their new album right there, really good. Replacements, Husker Du, a lot of stuff in the 80s. I totally missed Bruno Mars in the last video for Hawaii. Thankfully, it ended up not making a difference. I thought he's from LA for some reason, but so Hawaii does have Bruno Mars, Jack Johnson, and that Izzy long name, I don't know, Hawaiian guy, but I'm gonna have to go with Minnesota because Prince and Bob Dylan are two of the biggest heavy hitters of all time, and so the category 65 is overall. That's just my personal preferences. And so the one of 64 is the best overall. So if this was 64, it would be Hawaii because Bruno Mars is out. So I don't know, maybe not Prince, but anyway. So Minnesota goes up 1-0. So Hawaii, Cinderella, you're already facing adversity in the first round. Prince cannot be topped. Bruno Mars cannot compete. I agree, but in terms of overall sales, it might not be that case. So 42. 42 is best for state or provincial parks. I'm pretty sure Hawaii got this one in their last round and lost. Yeah, that's tough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my old atlas right here, go straight to Minnesota. And I've been to most of this part of the state where you're going to have a lot of the state parks and stuff. But I do believe most of the good stuff in Minnesota is national parks and national stuff. Hawaii certainly has significantly less, being just a much smaller area. I'm just kind of looking up here. How much of this stuff is state? Most of it is national forest. Voyageurs National Park. Boundary Waters is national. Hawaii doesn't have as many state parks, but the ones they have are just really, really good. So we're talking. Oh man, yeah, this is tough. I am going to go with Minnesota because it's just one of those ones where being bigger does help. So Hawaii is just a small piece of land, and their most beautiful spots are state or national parks. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park and Haleakala, some other really good national stuff as well. So yeah, it's a tough one. So yeah, a lot of categories aren't good for Hawaii, but they've been getting some good ones. So Minnesota goes up 2-0. Can Hawaii keep it going with 21? Can they get on the board? Total energy production. Now, this is certainly going to be Minnesota, but this is one where I do want to check the numbers to make sure maybe Hawaii has some crazy nuclear reactor that's powering the Pacific. Probably not. But so I'm going to go over here. I'm going to check. And so I got a lot of the websites that I've used for this up until this point already set up. This is not one of the ones that's really difficult because it's one website I can go to. So this particular website is the EIA, which is the Energy Information Administration. It's part of the government. So it's they can't be lying to you, right? It's the government. So Minnesota ranks 18th in terms of total energy output, 341 trillion BTUs. So 18th, I'm sure Hawaii is toward the bottom. It is 47th. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. This is wrong. This is wrong. I'm looking at the wrong thing. All right. All right. So this is why I did have to do these videos not live to cut away is, it can take a while to get the right number. So I want to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. And so if I were to have stuff like this, me talking and doing all this on all the videos would not be good. So for example, okay, so I thought I had this. I'm sorry, I had this brought up. All right, so Minnesota. This is off of the Department of Energy website. Minnesota, 420 trillion BTUs. That's pretty good. Hawaii is going to be significantly less. Hawaii is only 21 trillion. So a huge win for Minnesota there. I'm not sure exactly what type of energy, probably a lot of wind, maybe coal, I think, in the northern part of the state. I'm not 100% sure, but either way, Minnesota wins this one. So Hawaii, seriously, guys, you are on the verge. You're going to get swept on the live stream. Is not a good look for you, especially with Cinderella 43. 43. Well, Cinderella, it's not your day. 43% wilderness. There is virtually no wilderness in Hawaii. It's going to be all basically built up or beaches or things that are not wilderness. Minnesota is one of the very few states in the eastern U.S. that actually does have wilderness. So let me pull this out again. This whole portion of the state up here is mostly wilderness. This is the Boundary Waters canoe area, but there's just not much up here. So if you look at a light heat map of the U.S. at night, well, all the light shining, there'll be a big black spot in northeastern Minnesota. So that is Minnesota's wilderness. Hawaii has virtually none. So 4-0 Hawaii. Yeah, you did a nice showing to get this far. Obviously, the biggest surprise of the whole tournament being a low seed. Did a good job representing the state, but in the end, you out. All right, so let me put those 4 back in. So up next is going to be, that was very undramatic right there. I thought it'd be maybe go on a little bit longer than that. Jacob, thank you very much for the super chat. It's been a lot of fun making these. Probably the most fun I've had recording videos. They've been more difficult to edit than I thought they'd be. I'm in the process of kind of switching computer setup, and so I was wanting to do, okay, I'll do something easy for Mars. Some videos I can just kind of, but yeah, it didn't work out that way. So, but I do appreciate the support. I'm glad you enjoy it, and it's been a lot of fun recording these. So yeah, if you showed up 13 minutes late, there's already one loser. That'd be Hawaii. Of course, Hawaii, how can they actually be a loser? All right, so second semifinal here. North Carolina, who came off of Texas. Actually, Minnesota beat New Mexico, my favorite state, and California. California beat Tennessee, where I live, so Minnesota kind of indirectly defeated them too. So Minnesota's like my arch enemy in this thing. They're taking down all my places. So North Carolina, Colorado. These are 2 states I kind of expected to get real far, just because they're so well around. That's going to be one that probably benefits. All right, so GDP growth rates. This is one where I'm going to go back on here. They're both going to be pretty high. And thankfully on these, the 2020 numbers are not official yet, which is good because they're going to be terrible for every state. So I'm glad that some of the economic categories 2020 is not ready yet. All right. All right, so up to 2019 is what I'm going off of. Colorado, 2019 had a 3.9% GDP growth rate, pretty good. North Carolina had, actually surprised, only a 1.9%. Yeah, so I mean, that's still good growth, but not as much as Colorado. Kind of surprised it isn't as high for North Carolina. Um, this is yeah, year over year, 2018 to 2019. Um, the numbers are from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the BEA. So these are the best numbers you're going to get. So yeah, definitely surprised that North Carolina is not as high as it was. I thought it'd be one of the highest, but hey, I learned stuff too. So Colorado, you got 1-0 on North Carolina. Wow, we go from 1 to 2. 2 is the GDP per capita. That's almost certainly going to be Colorado as well. But let me make sure. All right, so North Carolina ranks 32nd in the U.S. with a GDP per capita of about $45,000, and Colorado is 16th at 53,000. So that's a pretty big win for Colorado there. Yeah, so North Carolina, kind of like Hawaii, going down 2-0. But I think the odds are pretty good for North Carolina. A lot of these categories are going to benefit them. You don't want the outdoors ones. Number 60. Number 60 is the best for a city or town weekend trip. Yeah, I'm going to go with Colorado again because, I mean, there's a lot more fun cities in North Carolina, but none of them are as fun as Denver. So Charlotte, the Raleigh-Durham area, the Piedmont Triad, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point, they're all pretty nice. I love Asheville. I mean, yeah, Asheville's great, but I mean, I think Denver does have it over all of those places in North Carolina. So yeah, that's brutal. Another 3-0. So yeah, come on, North Carolina, you got to get something right. You can't have 2 sweeps. That'd be really embarrassing. 61, one that people thought was 19. Well, so wait, I drew 1, 2, 60, and 61s. Yeah, 61 is best for an outdoors weekend trip. And I've mentioned this throughout all this, is that it's going to be really tough for any state from the East to be the state from the West because it's just so much more outdoor stuff you can do. And I love North Carolina. It's one of the best outdoor states in the Eastern U.S. with mountains, the highest mountains in the Eastern U.S. and the Western part of the state. And you have the Outer Banks and some of the intercoastal waterway and the swampy stuff in the East. But I mean, it's not Colorado. That's the central Colorado is just pure wilderness, high mountains. If you're into skiing, obviously they're great for skiing as well. So I mean, North Carolina, Hawaii, it's just not your night. I mean, we're just getting started, but you both got swept. So North Carolina, baby, you out. All right. This is yeah, I didn't expect 2 sweeps. A little disappointed, honestly. Some of you losers, North Carolina and Hawaii. But let me see if I can get caught up on some of the chat here. Thank you very much, Mark Jukovitz, for super chat. Thank you very much. Paul Villanueva. Yeah, a lot of Californians weren't happy with how they went out because, I mean, state quarter and state nickname are not important things in the grand scheme of things. But at the same time, I wanted to make sure I had categories like that so that, it'd be more equalizer. So that way a state that's smaller could have a chance to win things like your flag, your motto, that kind of stuff that could be really anybody. So that's kind of why I put those in there. T-Cell Logic, thank you very much. I dig the lemon GIF. The county I grew up in is the #1 lemon producing county in the country, so I can appreciate that. There's a town there called Lemon Cove on the way to the mountains. Hawaii for North Carolina for a third place. They both went out so bad. I may end up doing that because I feel bad for them. I mean, you got this far and they get nothing. You don't even get a one win. Um, Robbie, thank you very much from Utah. Colorado, Minnesota were your favorite states. I mean, when I did my own bracket beforehand, I had Georgia going all the way, and of course, I have a big, uh, I can do a lot much more easily because I knew who I would pick if I drew certain categories. But then Minnesota drew Georgia in the second round. When I saw that, I was like, oh man, these are two really well-rounded states. Um, so yeah, it was just this kind of this luck of the draw. Oliver, yes, I do have a dog, little small dog. He might make a uh, might make an appearance in a video at some point. He often makes appearances by barking in the background, but I don't think he's. I think you put a few photos of him in videos, but Sean Dillon, thank you. Philippines, never been there. Would love to visit. There's anywhere I'd love to visit. But yeah, interesting spot for the Philippines is that I played the game GeoGuessr, and all the signs there are in English. I thought that obviously a lot of people are going to speak English, but I was surprised that so many of the signs are only in English, which is kind of surprising. I noticed you have a Hispanic last name, and that's also very unique to Philippines. I mean, you're going to be in Southeast Asia, signs in English with Hispanic last names. Um, so very interesting. Liz Dregney, yes. Don't forget to like this video. I never like this video and subscribe, and I don't know. I don't do that kind of stuff. But yeah, like the video. Becca, I don't think I've ever actually even been on a train before. I've certainly never traveled by train. I've never really thought about it because every time I go cross country, I'm going to be driving. So I just don't really think about train rides. I'm trying to think if I've even been on one as a kid, like a little novelty train ride. I don't know. Zach, I do talk about Canada quite a bit. In this series, I had the Canadian provinces and territories as part of it. I try to include Canada as much as I can with the U.S. for things that are, pretty similar. For because I'm of the belief that a lot of Canada is more like the adjacent parts of the U.S. than it is like the other end of the country. So if you live in BC, you're more like Washington or Oregon than you are like, Quebec or Nova Scotia. Or if you live in Florida or if you live in New York, you're more like Quebec than you are with Washington. So the countries are both very east-west wide, and so you have a lot more differences east-west. And so I do try to include Canada as much as I can. Although for this series, some of these categories was brutal. If I drew a state and a province, the crime ones were tough to figure out. Um, Skyline, I don't hate the East Coast. I mean, the only thing I don't like about the Eastern U.S. is the humidity. So that's the main reason why I prefer the Western U.S. It's drier. The nights get cooler. You have more wilderness and like really dark night skies. That's kind of I don't know. I think it's important to me. It's not really important to a lot of people, but I don't hate the East Coast. I mean, I love the beaches. My wife's from South Carolina. I enjoy my time living there. I can certainly see myself living there. Savannah is real nice too. Now, I don't know. A lot of people have asked about this shirt. I don't know where it came from. It was a gift. I I honestly have no idea where it came. I don't know. I think my parents gave it to me. Um, I think my parents are on this stream, so if you're on there, tell me where you got it from. You have great parents when they're on your live stream chat. So, um, wow, somebody with a big donation, Jeremy. Thank you. Wow, very much. I really do appreciate that. It's very much humbling. Patty Dean, I mean, thank you guys very much for the super chat. I'm trying to keep up with all of them. Um, Um, Tech support 420. I Connecticut is one of the states I'm the least familiar with. I've rarely spoken about it because I'm just not as familiar with it. So I have not as much of an opinion on it as I do with most other states. Although, finally, this August, I believe, will be my first road trip through New England. So I'm really excited about that. Boston is the only big city I've not been to in the U.S. Uh, so I'm looking forward to that. So I'll have much more to say about Connecticut once I know for sure after spending some time there. But as for right now, I know there's a big discrepancy in terms of wealth. Hartford is struggling very bad. It's a very poor city. The southwestern portion of Fairfield County, the New York suburbs, is very, very wealthy. So um, let's see. Sawless, flawless. Yeah, your home steak got eliminated because of Canadian bacon. It's good stuff. But I didn't take it over um, the Kahlua pig. That's different. Nathaniel Thrust, thank you very much. What's my least favorite state overall? Um, you know, it sounds stupid. I don't really have one. I would say my least favorite state is probably Idaho, and it's not because of the scenery. It's just because when we've been there, you get in some of these back roads, and the I don't know, the people have not been too friendly to us, not very welcoming. And it's not just once or twice; it's been several times. So I'm just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of weird. We've been there with South Carolina plates on our car, Tennessee plates. I mean, it didn't seem to matter. People just kind of were very cold. But as far as the places, I really don't hate anywhere. I mean, I know Florida is always hot. I don't do well in the hot, but um, a Psycho coaster, I would like. I'm not really big on. I have to see every single thing, like visit all 50 of the highest points. I don't. That's not really important enough to me to check things off like that. But I would like to visit as many places as possible. But as far as I have to see all of these, specific things, other than maybe the state capitol buildings, that's about the only one where I really do want to see all of them but not just for the sake of seeing all of them to check it off a box, because I actually do want to see all of them. Adrian, I say Idaho and the Dakotas. I like the Dakotas. They don't. I mean, I often judge a place by how the people are when you're driving on the back roads, not the interstates, not the U.S. highways, not the tourist towns, just regular old folks and just regular small towns. And I think you get a better impression of, what this place is really like. So I think that's why I like the Dakotas. I mean, people everywhere except for parts of rural Idaho, like west central and southeastern Idaho, those two parts, and kind of western Wyoming, kind of the rural areas, is not one of my favorite areas. Um, um, Wesley, what gives New Mexico a leg up on Colorado? For me, one is the culture. This kind of I like how any, it's not dominated by any culture. It's Hispanic, it's Navajo, it's white, it's just New Mexico. It's a good mix of everything. The food there is so good. I mean, it's not like anywhere else in the U.S. And but specifically for Colorado, it just doesn't get as cold. It's not as far north, so it doesn't get as cold during the winter. And the higher elevation parts don't get that hot during the summer. I'm okay with a dry heat. Ben, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm going to be in Boston. I'm looking forward to it. I know I'm going to love it because I know it's just what I know about it. It's going to be a very unique place. There's nothing else like it. There's going to be no other city that's you can be even close to it. And I'll also be in Rhode Island, so I'll almost certainly stop in Providence. Um, but that's not till August. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to do all stops. Mark Jukovitz, thoughts on Illinois? I like Illinois. I think it gets a bad rap. I think no state has more self-loathing people than Illinois. When I started doing these March Madness videos, people from Illinois were like, "Oh, we're going out in the first round. We suck." I mean, they're just like self-loathing. I don't know why. I mean, downstate's kind of, it's kind of like Iowa. It's not the most exciting place, but it's not bad. Chicago is just a huge city. I mean, I love it, but it's a little too big for me. But I mean, Chicago is maybe one of my favorite, if not my really toward the top favorite cities, big cities. But I could never live there. But I don't know. I just love the unique aspects of it. Leonardo, I would love to go to Argentina. That's really, really high on my list, to just road trip the southern part of South America, specifically Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, and maybe southern Brazil. That's something I would love to do. Just buy a cheap minivan, just beat up something, then just drive it around till it dies. Connor, yeah, I'm going to be in Maine. That's actually the end result of the road trip in August, is to go to Maine. So yeah, we'll be spending most of the time there, probably a week there. I'm not sure exactly how long we'll be there, but then several days to get up there and several days to get back. Fox Foster, Chattanooga or Knoxville? Now I would say this not because I live here. I don't like Knoxville, and I think that's pretty much a common thread in Chattanooga, that we just don't like Knoxville. It's about the same. It's a little bit bigger, but it's just so much more crowded. It just feels way bigger. It's I-75 and I-40 come together right there. Two of the most important interstates in the country meet right there, and there's always traffic backup. It has way more traffic than a city that size should have, and there's only so much, no offense, only so much Go Vols stuff you can see. Orange, I mean, everywhere you go is orange. But I think it's pretty much standard in Chattanooga that we just really don't like Knoxville. It's not like I hate it, but it's like I definitely would take Chattanooga, not because I live here. Just I genuinely do think it is better. Zach, chief advice traveling around. Yeah, car with good gas mileage. That's everything. I mean, if you have a Corolla versus an F-150 four-wheel drive V8, your trip will be half as much. It'll cost much, much less. Camping is also going to make things a lot cheaper, but gas is your biggest expense on a road trip. Depending on the situation, if you only have a gas guzzler, it might be cheaper to actually rent a cheaper car or a better gas mileage car. Wow. Okay. I'm not going to get to all these questions. I'm sorry. Fruit punch. How many road trips do I make per year? I'm going to use that as a segue into the next thing I'm going to go into. Caleb, yes, Chattanooga. Beautiful day today. This is the time of year when you get a lot of nice days. It gets really gnarly during the summertime, and the winters are pretty cold. So the spring and fall are the nice times of year. Of course, come in the next couple of weeks, it's going to be just everything covered in greenish yellow from all the pollen. All right. Yeah. Again, thank you guys for everything. I really do appreciate all the support. I do want to go over a couple of channel announcements, things that are going to be I'm going to be doing in the next month or so. The first, that I'm going to be streaming more, and I'm going to be streaming a couple of different things. It's all going to be geography, but they might not seem like they're geography. So the first one is going to be Microsoft Flight Simulator, and if you are familiar with it, or if you're not familiar with it, it's literally a flight simulator. It's got the cockpit and buttons and all the things you need to do. And it's meant to be a training tool. It's meant to be a legit flight sim, but I don't care about that. What I do care about is that it's basically Google Earth. So you're flying a plane, and it can be a small little crop duster, little single engine prop, something that you can fly low and slow on top of Google Earth. So you can see all the terrain. You can see if it's a big city, the high rises are all done up. I flew through the Grand Canyon the other day. I flew around small Caribbean islands. It's really a really great geographic tool that gives you a chance to see things you just otherwise could not see, like middle of a tropical rainforest in Congo, or just you can go anywhere that Google Earth. I mean, as they've been everywhere. Obviously, it's a satellite. I flew over Area 51, talking to generic buildings, not the real ones. Lucas, I'm going to be doing the finals in just a few minutes here. I did want to go over a couple things before I do that. So yeah, that'll be the first thing I'm going to start streaming probably once a month. Flight Simulator, and the other one I'm going to start streaming is I've gotten so many requests for this. There's a game called GeoGuessr, and it's an online game. And basically, what it is they just drop you off somewhere in the world on Google Street View. So anywhere that Google Street View has been, they'll just drop you off there, and it's your job to figure out where you are. And so you go by different kinds of clues. There's ones for different countries. I've played it a lot. I started playing it in November. I played it for about 2 months, a lot. Then my shoulder hurt because a lot of it, you're on your mouse, you're doing this, and I got genuine shoulder pain. I had to go to physical therapy for it. I'm not 100% sure because of that, but anyway, I'm going to start streaming that probably once a month. I just want to see, get some feels for how much interest there is in that. It's a lot of fun. But if you've watched like GeoWizard or Chicago Geographer do that, man, they would kill me in that. They're way better. I don't do it. I don't compete in it. I don't do any kind of leaderboard stuff. I'm not trying to break the record. So I just kind of compete with myself to see if I can figure out where I'm at. So it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to start streaming that, see how much interest there is in that. And I also have other stuff I'm going to start streaming. It'll all be geography, but I'm a little worried because specifically with Flight Simulator, it's a video game. So if you see something up on the feed saying here's Geography King, he's streaming a video game, I don't want to give the impression I do play video games, but I'm not going to stream that. That's not what I'm doing. Although that technically is a video game, so I don't want to give off the wrong impression. I think GeoGuessr is something that, so many folks, and there's comments on here, the people have asked about me when I'm going to start playing that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I look forward to doing that. The next thing I'm going to announce is I was hoping it'd be up by now, but it's not. It's going through review. I am going to start doing the channel memberships. I was kind of reluctant for a while on that. I didn't really want to do Patreon because that's not really tied to YouTube. You don't really get something specific out of it. So what I would like to do is have memberships that have access to a members only stream. So a live stream that be significantly fewer people can get to all the questions, talk about, get down in the dirt and geography, real nerdy if you want, or just whatever. So I think that'd be a good way to do that without, overfilling people's, inboxes of stuff I'm doing. So I think that would be a good way to get, good interaction with the community without having to go through Patreon. But it's still under review from YouTube. I thought it'd be done by now, but it is not. All right. So the other thing I wanted to announce is that I am going to be going on my own road trip in the next few weeks. I'm not sure exactly who's going with me or how long I'm going to be gone. But it'll be probably late April to May or so. I'm not sure exactly how long it's going to be. I will have been fully vaccinated by then, so I can hit the road. Although I'm not looking to do anything. I'm not going to be out partying, hitting the clubs or anything like that. But I didn't go on a road trip last year. I usually go once or twice a year. But last year being last year, it didn't happen. So I'm going to be doing that. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do videos wise during that. I'm going to probably post like really short videos of different places I'm at while I'm there, but not like, Instagram kind of stuff, not like I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do, but it's going to be mainly about the place, not going to be about me being there. Just kind of show some stuff, different neighborhoods. So say I'm going to be I'm pretty sure I'll be in St. Louis at some point on this trip. So, just show various neighborhoods, this part of town, that part of town, this historic building, that kind of stuff, but not like, here I am, doing a keg stand at some bar, nothing like that. It's going to be about the place, not about me at the place. So, but as far as the actual route, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to, before I leave, I'm going to ask for some recommendations in the community post about best places to eat. So if I'm saying, Lincoln, Nebraska, what's the best place to get a whatever? So I'm going to ask for opinions on that. So that'll be, again, probably late April to, anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks. It just depends on who's going and how things are going in the world right then. I think it'll be okay in terms of travel. I'm not going to do anything too crazy, but all right. So yeah, I'm going to look for the announcement of memberships in the next couple of weeks. Again, I really wanted to be up tonight, but and as far as when I'm going to do the streams, I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to mess around with different dates and times. I mean, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern is not the best time to do stuff like this. So I'm thinking Sunday, early evening Eastern time. That way it's afternoon Pacific time, and it's not too late for people overseas. Like a lot of folks, I have a lot of subscribers in Europe, and so I've gotten a lot of comments like, the other live stream and this one, they're on too late for them. So I'm trying to balance where most of the viewers are versus not, alienating anybody specifically. So I think Sunday early evening Eastern time will be kind of what I'm going for. So again, just look for the announcements of that. And once I get a specific time figured out that works out the best for all of us, that's what I'll end up going with. So say it's Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern or whatever it is. I'll try that, and if that ends up being the one, that'll end up being this kind of the normal time to tune in. All right, so I think I'm just about caught up. All right. Which means we're moving on to the finals, the most important moment in the history of the internet. All right, so North Carolina, Hawaii, you both got swept, but that means that Minnesota and Colorado just dominated. So when it comes down here, it comes all the way down to moose and bison. No, what are we gonna? Moose and mountain goats. That's good enough. Lutefisk and Rocky Mountain oysters. All right, Colorado, Minnesota. First category. That'll be the first 2 categories. 9. 9 is the statewide crime rate. So I'm going to bring this one. This is one of the ones where it's just one website has all of the stuff. The one about this individual city crime was a little more difficult. I'm pretty sure Minnesota is going to win this category because Colorado had this one, and it was surprisingly high crime. I was kind of not expecting it to be like that. All right, so now with crime, it's really weird because it's really easy to find violent crime rates. That's all over the internet. So to find non-violent crime, to include property crimes, it's much more difficult. And when it involved the Canadian province, it made it tricky. Thankfully, Canada is almost entirely, pretty much everywhere in Canada, safer than anywhere in the US. But All right. Okay, so we are on. All right, so this is the crime index as of what's the date? 2019. That's going to be most of the most recent data is going to be 2019. Stuff from 2020 isn't official yet for economic or anything. Anyway, Minnesota ranks 12th or excuse me, 17th in the U.S. with a crime index of about 1,300, which is pretty low for. And it's just a mix of all kinds of violent crime, property crime. It does not include white collar crime. There's not bank fraud and cyber stuff. Colorado was 24th. So Minnesota does win that category in terms of crime. So Minnesota, you go up 1-0. You've not lost. I'm going to put this one back in. I'm not going to cheat like that. Minnesota has not lost a category yet. They're unstoppable. 62. 62 is the best single signature food. This is these food categories are tough for Minnesota because they're just I don't even know what. So if you're from Minnesota in the chat, what is your signature food? I mean, I think the signature food is lutefisk, but I wouldn't be mean and count that as your signature food. I think it's more of a joke that people from there try to get people that are visiting to eat it. I mean, tater tot hot dish is probably the most iconic thing I can think of, but whatever it is, it's not my favorite. But I don't even know what. I'm looking at Colorado. I don't even know what their signature foods are. Rocky Mountain oysters. Well, there we go. I don't know. I don't even know what animal they're from. Yeah, so Rocky Mountain oysters are kind of like they're bull or bison testicles. They're probably fantastic, but that's kind of like lutefisk. Is that really their peaches? No. Oh, yeah, out of green chili. That's right. Let me check somewhere else. And for the food ones, if I don't know the foods, I'm going to just check the same website that you can just search for Colorado signature food. That's what I'm doing. Just if I recognize them or had them, as of right now, these are not two of the best states for this. Well, these are not. These are two of the lower ranking states, I think, for this category. So looking up Colorado elk and bison burgers, edibles. Well, that's probably true. Tater tot hot dish beats bowls balls. Probably does. I've never actually had them. They're probably good. I don't know, actually. Yeah, I'm starting to. The green chili is starting to wet my whistle a little bit here. So I'm leaning towards Colorado based on the green chili and the smothered burritos, wild game. Got the peanut gallery over here. Oh, I have just received a note about the Juicy Lucy. What is a Juicy Lucy? Could this be what puts Minnesota over Colorado? I don't know what that. I think it's a burger from a place, isn't it? Not like a. Oh. Oh, ooh, Colorado, you're in trouble. This looks good. What is this thing? Well, but how is it different than a regular cheeseburger, though? I mean, it looks really good. I'm looking at photos. What is different about it? Let's see. I'm going to go on the Wikipedia page for it. So it's a cheeseburger with the cheese inside of the meat. Does that make it? I mean, that's good, but is that really unique? All right, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to my original thought. I'm going back with Colorado. The green chili, bison, elk. I mean, don't get me wrong. A Juicy Lucy looks pretty darn good. I'm going to go with Colorado here. So they tie it up 1-1. Minnesota, you lose your first category. And I'm looking at some of the other ones. Mall of America food. That makes them lose. Yeah, the peaches. No, no. I'm going to pretend like they don't have peaches because that's one of my least favorite foods. Colorado made Chipotle. The actual chili or the chain store? I would say, I'm going to go with Colorado. Green chili. I mean, chili is going to be something I really love. I mean, again, that Juicy Lucy looks pretty good, but I don't know how. It's just a burger with cheese in the middle. I mean, that's how is that Minnesota? I don't know. So anyway, I'm going with Colorado there. They tie it up 1-1. I do like how there's no I in Juicy for Juicy Lucy. All right, next category is 34. 34 is the autumn climate. Well, they both start off really nice. September's are nice, really nice in both. October's are chilly in both, but not bad. November, I'm going to go with Colorado because Minnesota by November is pretty freaking cold. November and the higher elevations of Colorado is really cold, but Denver is not that bad. I mean, it gets cold, of course, in Denver during the winter, but I'd rather be November in Denver than in Colorado or than Twin Cities. But let me bring up the climate chart for sure. People from Wisconsin were not happy about me saying Nebraska has better summers. But I'm going to go over some of my controversial decisions after the finals, just because people were mad. There are some mad folks out there. All right, so you can get the climate chart here for. So Minneapolis, Twin City areas, low 80s, or excuse me, it's going to be mid to upper 70s, going to be perfect. But in September, 60s in October. But by November, the high temperatures are already in the 40s. That's pretty cold. I mean, that's not cold, but I mean, and you've already starting to get pretty decent amount of snow. Yeah, I think it's going to be. I'm going to go with Colorado just because, again, I mean, most people don't live in the high elevations, so I'm mainly going to go with where the populations are. So Twin Cities and Denver, where and so the temperatures in Denver in November are going to be in the 50s. So that's still pretty nice. That's not bad at all. So that's a much easier win for Colorado than I thought. It doesn't snow or rain as much in the fall as Minnesota. So yeah, that's actually pretty easy. I thought it'd be much more difficult than it was. So Colorado goes up 2-1. least we have a match here. 13. 13. Oh, my, the hardest one. All right, this is crop production. I never mentioned this doing it, but it's crops that aren't grains. I had a separate category for grains. So when I'm doing the crop one, it's not going to be the grains. So, all right. I lost my. All right. But I lost the chat here. All right. All right. So in terms of crops, it's so this one unfortunately does take a little bit longer to research than the other ones. So I'm gonna, because you have to go through a few different websites to get this info. Honestly, I was hoping this one didn't come. All right. But I am glad that, it's not going to be a sweep. So Colorado, most of their agriculture is going to be in livestock, but they also have, again, chilies. That's really, and dry beans is really big as well. And I'm not sure if marijuana counts as a crop. I know different states consider it different. I know Oregon considers an agricultural commodity, which is why they rank kind of high in agriculture. Oh, it's going slow. All right, so in terms of Colorado, they're big in. They've got actually really not that much. In terms of potatoes, pretty big. Sunflowers, that's kind of weird. Dry beans, peaches, and sugar beets. So that's really not that much, honestly, in terms of crops. Because again, it's not grains. So there's a lot of hay and corn in Colorado, but okay, so it's going to be Minnesota, but let me get the actual. And I'm getting these numbers from the USDA. That's the problem with some of the government websites. They're just difficult to navigate. They just make it like the census website is really hard to navigate. A lot of potatoes in Minnesota. I didn't realize sunflower was such a big thing. A lot of peas. That's interesting. A lot of beans, not as much as Colorado. Sugar beets. Yeah, so overall, it's going to be Minnesota. I'm surprised they grow so many potatoes there, honestly, and peas. You don't really think of peas as being a major cash crop, but it is for Minnesota. So Minnesota, they do tie it up 2-2. I'm having some issues with this. Sorry for the technical difficulties here. All right. All right, so I got this back up. Sorry about that. But yeah, Minnesota is going to win this category. They tied it up 2-2. See if we can get one that goes to game 7. This is 10. This is the largest company headquartered there. So I think it's Target from Minnesota. I'm not sure what the biggest company in Colorado is. Maybe national, one of the defense agencies or defense aerospace. Remax. Okay, Remax real estate. Okay. So what's bigger, Remax or Target? Remax has revenue of 177 million. That's way smaller than I would have thought. Yeah, I'll say Remax is the biggest one for Colorado, and I'm pretty sure it's Target for Minnesota, which I'm sure would be much more than that. Oh, actually, I'm way off. Totally wrong. Totally wrong. Yeah, Arrow Electronics is the biggest company in Colorado. They do a lot of solid state batteries, a lot of EV electric car batteries. So yeah, $30 billion in revenue. Now let's see where Target ranks. Actually, it might not even be, it might be 3M. Okay, Target. Yeah, Target has a revenue of 75 billion. So that's significantly larger than Arrow. I wouldn't be surprised if Arrow is going to get much, much bigger as things go much more EV oriented. So yeah, so Minnesota with Target goes up 3-2, which means Colorado, you are on the verge of going out. Minnesota is on the verge of being crowned the best state or province in North America. Will it be decided by 56? 56 is the cancer rate. Well, we'll see how this one goes. See if it comes down to this one. I'm pretty sure Minnesota does really well in this category. No, I'm sorry. Minnesota does poorly in this category. Very depressing category to end on. I took out a few of the kind of depressing categories, but this one is not a Not a happy one, but it is a important category. Okay, so Minnesota. Wow, Minnesota has the 7th highest cancer rate in the U.S. That's kind of surprising. Oh, and the thing. All right. Yeah, Colorado's going to win this one, but let me see where it ranks. It ranks the top 10 and the bottom 25. So Colorado is somewhere in between there. All right, so here we go. Colorado has the 5th lowest cancer rate in the country. And again, Minnesota. Actually, no, I'm sorry, Minnesota isn't that bad, but it's way worse than Colorado. So 30th. So, and this is with the CDC stats. So Colorado with one of the best in the country for this, and Minnesota is below average. So Colorado brings it up to 3-3. So I'm glad that the finals is coming down to Game 7. It all comes down to this, the most important moment in the history of the internet will be decided by whatever number 39 is. Well, it's pretty going to be easy one here. This is fishing. One state is a bunch of water. The other state doesn't have all that much. I mean, you have to go to Minnesota here. There's just so many more lakes. You have rivers. You have great mountain streams and stuff in Colorado as well. Some nice lakes, but you just don't have, the smaller lakes and smaller streams. Plus the Great Lake Superior with walleye is really well known for. I mean, that's some good eating right there. Some walleye. So, I mean, I do have to go with Minnesota in this category, and what that means is they win the series 4-3. And Colorado, you are crowned as the greatest state. Or sorry, no, Minnesota is crowned greatest state in the U.S. Colorado, you out. Minnesota, you oofda. I don't even know what that means. Oofda. The freaking state that beats New Mexico, California, wins it all. So if my states are going to lose to somebody, it might as well be to the overall winner. Minnesota is a great state. I love it there. I've been there many times. I've not been canoeing up there. I'm a big canoeist. I would love to go to the northern part of the state to go up there. I mean, Twin Cities are a lot of fun. I like Duluth. It's kind of a nice small city. But yeah, I mean, Minnesota, unstoppable. They go on to win this entire thing. I'm not sure what I'm going to do to honor them with my next video, but there'll be something in the next video that honors the great state of Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes, the North Star State, the Gopher State. Yeah, so there we go. That's Geography March Madness 2021. Minnesota is the greatest state in the country. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of fun, and hopefully that people watching the series. Hope you had enjoyed watching it. Also, I wanted it to become like subliminally educational. So I know, again, people got kind of mad at some of the stuff. So I'm going to go over some of the categories. Let me get caught up a little bit with some of these chats. Moose Boy, both are great states, but Minnesota is superior. That's a good geography pun right there. All right, so I'm going to go to answer a few more questions while I get caught up. People ask me this one a lot. Why do I not like Orlando? It's probably my least favorite big city in the country, and it's mainly because it's just there's no soul to it. It's just kind of a lot of people, a lot of crowd, a lot of traffic, but just not a lot of tourists. It's just not the fun stuff. My wife lived there for 3 years. I'm very familiar with it. We went down there a lot. Um, I mean, it's just the roads are so wide that the city is just bigger than it needs to be because each road is just so wide. It was just so weird how spread out things are for like no reason. There'll be uh, drainage ditches and retention ponds for to keep things from overflowing, and there'll be a lot of spots where there's ponds for the alligators to go to. They're kind of fenced off. It's just so big and air. It doesn't need to be that big. There's just so much empty space, and the toll roads are really expensive. So to get around town, you have to use all these toll roads on the freeways, and it's kind of expensive. All right, so to go over some of the, hold on, one more. Stephen Lawson, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Average PC enjoyer, thank you for the super chat. Not who I wanted to win. Well, thankfully, your federal funding is not dependent on these videos. They should be. It really should be, but it's not. So I do want to go over a couple of the ones that were controversial. David K., thank you very much. I'm, again, glad you and your wife enjoy these videos. I enjoy making them, and that's means a lot to me that people enjoy watching them. So I want to first talk about Wisconsin. Road Todd, thank you for the super chat. Wisconsin did not like how I picked Nebraska's summers better than Wisconsin. And the reason for that is because all of Nebraska is going to be a few degrees warmer than all of Wisconsin during the summertime. But all of Wisconsin is going to be a little more humid, and it also rains more in Wisconsin in summer than Nebraska. So Nebraska, a little bit hotter, but drier and less rain. So that's why I went with Nebraska. Not that Wisconsin's summers are horrible. They're really nice, but so are Nebraska's. Arizona people were probably the most people in Arizona were mad. One of the categories was best for beaches or rivers if there aren't any beaches. So they were up against Saskatchewan, which is a province in the middle of Ontario, middle of Canada. It's a prairie province. So Saskatchewan's right here. Big boy, a lot of lakes. The northern half of the province is just all lakes. And so I think what happened is that I didn't explain the category very well, because a lot of people from Arizona were like, well, the Colorado River carved the Grand Canyon. How can that not be better? But that really wasn't what the category is meant to be. It wasn't what the river did. It's what, the actual river. So the portions of the state that would have been competing would have been the California border area. So Lake Mead, and hardly any of that's in Arizona anyway. Mainly Lake Havasu versus the big lakes in Saskatchewan. So I mean, it was a tough call, but the Colorado River did a lot of wonderful things by carving out the Grand Canyon and a lot of other wonderful formations in the Southwest. But in terms of the beaches or the lakes, I don't know. That's why I went with Saskatchewan in that category. Oregon, they were mad at me too because I picked Maryland's crab cakes over West Virginia's pepperoni rolls. I picked Alaska's king crab over Minnesota's whatever juicy. I mean, whatever it was, it's not as good as king crab. But then I took Utah's pastrami burgers over Oregon's crab. They're like, well, how you like crab? That's just a tough draw. So I mean, I do like Dungeness crab. I think it's great, but I mean, yeah, you mix pastrami, cheese, burger. I mean, it's kind of like a Juicy Lucy, but you throw pastrami on top of that too. So that's where that came from. Another tough call. I mean, when categories are music or food, especially, it's going to be just completely subjective. I mean, you can get 100 people to say 100 different things for that stuff. So that's why, don't take it too seriously. But Oregon, they were not too happy about that. For just Columbia, they were not happy with the fact I chose North Carolina as a better place for a road trip. I think it has mainly to do with I didn't describe that category very well. So for me, a road trip is like what I'll be doing in a few weeks. You go somewhere, stop that night, wake up the next day, go somewhere else, and you're somewhere else different each day. You get to where you're going to go in the afternoon and spend the night there. For British Columbia, I think it's more. I mean, you just couldn't do it like that because you'd want to fly into Vancouver, spend at least a few days there, take the ferry over to Victoria, do the drive to Whistler up in the Canadian Rockies. There's stuff, but you would be centered on Vancouver and not going here, next day here, next day here, next day here. And then for North Carolina, with the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Great Smoky Mountains, several big cities, Wilmington along the coast, the Intercoastal Waterway, the Outer Banks, you can do something different each day. I would say British Columbia is a better vacation spot for sure, but for a road trip, that's why I went with North Carolina in that category. And I mentioned at the beginning of the stream that people from California weren't happy that they lost with state nickname and state quarter. Well, those categories were just so that places like Nova Scotia or Vermont could win. So it wouldn't just be the state with the big economies, the big companies, the big population, all that stuff. Because I didn't want it to end up California, Texas in the final, just guaranteed. So it almost ended up like that. But it was just kind of nice to have some categories that would equalize things. So yeah, Minnesota's they won with 2 of those categories, but they won with so many other categories. Just a really well-rounded place. All right. Dane Gunderson. That is about the most Minnesota name ever. And yes, I will go to Matt's and get a Juicy Lucy. They look fantastic. I mean, I'm not going to say they're not good, but yeah, I'll have one for sure. I'm not sure next time I'll be up there. Dax Zirconium, thank you very much for the super chat. What about Sarah McLaughlin? I mean, I actually contacted her, see if she wanted to do something for one of the videos, like maybe just do a little blurb, something funny, like like say, so you thought Nova Scotia is no good, when California was out, like, go California, you out. She was like, that'd be fun, but I just don't want to. A video's at the right time or something stupid like that. Whatever, Sarah. Caroline Rickert, let's talk about that crab cakes decision. If you're talking the one Maryland versus West Virginia, I do like a West Virginia pepperoni roll. Those are good. Whenever I go up there, I go to a place called Tudor's Biscuit World, and they have one called a Peppy, which is pepperoni. I'll get that one sometimes. I mean, it's good stuff. I mean, some of those food categories are really tough because I mean, how do you decide between some of these? They're really good. Aaron from Tulare, thank you very much for the super chat. Going to Pismo for clam chowder. Went to Humboldt State. That's you're speaking my language there. Yeah, clam chowder in Pismo is so good. So if you're not from California, Pismo Beach it's not exactly halfway, but it's kind of sort of halfway between San Francisco Bay Area and LA. So it's part of the coast where there's no one goes there except for people from other parts of Central California. It's too far from LA. People for there to go, too far from the Bay Area, people that come down to go to. So it's very local oriented, really good, this traditional beach town. And there's 2 places that do clam chowder and a bread bowl across street from each other. They're really, really good. Minneapolis Dan, that's our first championship since '91. What what did you win in '91? All right, so as promised, I will do Hawaii versus North Carolina because I feel so bad for both these guys. They just choked big time. Just did not step up their game. You know, North Carolina, the state is used to doing something important for March Madness, but they've just failed miserably. Hawaii, at least, they can just go chill out on the beach and just go to a luau and have some Kahlua pig. In North Carolina, you have to suffer through March Madness. But all right. So the loser of this is going to be, I mean, you're really a loser if you lose this one. All right, third place round. We got number 8 here. 8 is job growth rate. Well, I'm not even going to have to look this one up because Hawaii has very flat job growth. It actually was negative for 2020. Of course, everything was negative 2020, but North Carolina is one of the top ones for job growth. In fact, I think I have. Yeah, North Carolina is like 7th, and Hawaii is like 3rd to last. All right, so that is North Carolina getting something done. I mean, let me get these actual numbers, though. All right, so from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, North Carolina has, or excuse me, Hawaii has 0.65% job growth rate, and North Carolina has a 1.6 job growth rate. So year over year, 2019 to 2020, February 2020. So North Carolina, not completely embarrassed. From 8 to 7. 7 is property tax. Another one I'm not going to have to look up because Hawaii has the lowest property tax in the country by far. Actually, it's kind of a very low. So it's low enough to where even with the high housing values there, it's still a pretty low property tax rate. I think I actually have this. Yeah, it's so North Carolina's property tax is 0.85%, 33rd. That's fairly low. But Hawaii's 0.28. It's last. And who's second to last? It's way higher. Yeah, second to last is Alabama at 0.43%, so significantly higher. So Hawaii is pretty low. So even if you have an expensive house there, at least your property tax won't be crazy high. The income tax is really, really high in Hawaii. It's kind of like California and New York. It has to be because you have so many just millionaires just buying up all the properties there. You gotta get that money somehow. So Hawaii, you win something. Number 30. Well, beaches or rivers. I've said many times how much I love the Outer Banks. That's the best beaches along the East Coast. But come on, man, it's Hawaii. So, I mean, no one's going to beat Hawaii in this category. Probably not even Florida. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, you got to go with Hawaii in the beaches category. That's 2-1. $61. I pulled that one before. Best for an outdoors weekend trip. Hawaii is never going to be good for a weekend trip. And who's going to go there for just a weekend? So you got to go with North Carolina. I mean, I go there a lot for weekend outdoors trips. There's this really cool park that my friends and I will go to. It's like in a big lake, and there's like a small island in the middle of the lake. It's got one fire ring for camping. It's just really cool to be on like our own private island in the middle of this lake. All right, 2-2. They can put up a good match with each other, but not against Minnesota or Colorado. 62. The best single signature food. Well, this is, oh man, when it's these two, it's like the same thing. Kahlua pig or pulled pork. I mean, North Carolina's food is, every time I get them, I get their food. You know what? I'm going to cheat and I'm going to redraw. They're so similar. Yeah, totally cheating. It's a third place match, doesn't count. Just for pride. All right, 56. What? That's cancer ray. I just do that one too. I totally just mix these up. That happens. I hate when that happens, but it does. Hawaii 12th lowest, North Carolina 15th highest. So that's 3-2 for Hawaii. And numero, I drew that one too. I hate that. All right. So one is GDP growth rate. All right, so Hawaii, 0.3% GDP growth rate year over year, 2018 to 2019. North Carolina, 1.9. So North Carolina wins that one. The losers bracket goes to game 7. Which one of these is going to be double loser? 10. See, I had that one too. All right, so this is, it's definitely going to be North Carolina. This is the largest company. And it's probably Bank of America. Let me see. Who's this? I don't know who this is. Bank of America's got to be bigger than Lowe's, right? All right, so yeah, it's Hawaiian Airlines for Hawaii, which they got that category in a previous round. But for North Carolina, I mean, Bank of America is just, it's the biggest bank in the country, so it's huge. Pretty good chunk of Americans have been ripped off by them at some point. But yeah, I mean, you got to get that win to North Carolina. So North Carolina does show up to do something without getting completely embarrassed. And Hawaii, you double out. So, oh man. All right, so I did try to find a Sarah McLachlan record to put on my wall behind, but it's yeah, she's not a big draw for vinyl. All right, MW 360. Have I driven on Highway 395? Yes, I have. That's a really cool drive. It goes up the eastern side of the Sierra. So when you go up from LA, you come up here. This is the coast here. And this is the Sierra Nevada. So you're just coming up this highway here. Really nice. Death Valley's to one. Oh, I can't even see this. Death Valley's over here. And this is a really cool drive. Some nice old West kind of towns. You can see Mount Whitney from that side of the Sierra. A really nice drive. It's all the way up to Mono Lake. Really nice area. Jared Hall. I probably would not do this same series with countries because I haven't been able to travel, so I wouldn't be able to say as much about places. I would only be able to use categories that are just stats. But also, I mean, how would I decide which ones to use? I couldn't do all the countries in the world. So probably not, at least anytime soon. Yeah, Mount Whitney and Death Valley, the highest point in the contiguous U.S. and the lowest point are really close to each other. They're like less than 100 miles apart. Just a freak of nature and geology. Joe, how you doing, Joe? The geography queen is camera shy. She brought a little note to me earlier, but she is, yeah, she's camera shy. So you just have to imagine. Badwater Marathon from lowest to highest point. Yeah, I mean it's just so weird how close they are to each other. Um, yeah, national parks. This would be a good way to compare. Do something like this with national parks. Yeah, there's. I mean, I got plenty of time to think about it, so we'll see how it goes. Um, El, can you make a part two of the Africa video you did? I probably will. A lot of stuff like that I'll do a part two of. Uh, Now, I'm not going to just chase views, but whenever I post a video that's not about the US, the view count is significantly lower. I like to post stuff about Mexico, Canada, Caribbean, but those videos get much, much, much fewer views. But yeah, that's not going to stop me from doing stuff like that, but I probably will do a part two um, on that one eventually. Uh, Jumping Lizard, yes, that's actually my next video. Interesting maps. I'm going to try to do one of those once a quarter or so. I like doing those. I make a lot of maps myself. The ones that don't look very good are the ones I make. And I'm going to do a different video on how you can make your own maps. There's a lot of different websites, a lot of different resources you can use to make your own maps. So look for that one coming up next week. And I'll also have a video talking about potential DC and Puerto Rico statehood. That's a big news story right now. Josh Heitman, what city for The Simpsons? There's a lot of theories about that because, I mean, I think Springfield was chosen because there's like 10 Springfields. There's actually more than that in the US. It's just such a generic name. I mean, the biggest ones are in Missouri, Massachusetts, Oregon, Ohio. And it could be any of those, but it's probably just, I would think it's just a generic Springfield. It could be anywhere. It's kind of like Greenville. So many of those. Crush your cam. The Ontario International Airport's in California, and London International is in Ontario. It is. Another one, what is it? Lake Michigan is the only one that doesn't touch Ontario, and Lake Ontario is the only one that doesn't touch Michigan. So that's kind of another kind of strange thing there. Casey, Toledo, good system of parks. I haven't done too much time in Toledo parks. Seems like whenever I'm in Toledo, I'm stuck in traffic because I-75 is like always under construction. I mean, I've been driving up through there for 20 years, more than 20 years. It's always under construction. I don't know what they're doing with it. Um, get your act together, Toledo, because it's hasn't been fixed in a long time. Okay, Thomas Freeze, Springfield, Oregon is the one. Okay, I was unaware of that. I just figured it was something generic. Um, so I'm going to go back to some of the older comments that I missed. Um, Maps and legends. Baltimore has a lot to offer. Not as bad as people think. Yeah, it was interesting because the Inner Harbor used to be like the place you would go. It was like the big tourist spot, but it was also mostly kind of chain stuff like Cheesecake Factory and Hooters and that kind of typical stuff you see in cities. Um, I hadn't been there in a while, but I have heard it's kind of fallen on hard times. I know Fells Point used to be kind of a younger. Back when I was younger, that's part of town we would go to drink and stuff. But um, yeah, it's not as bad as it gets a rap for, but it is still pretty bad. I mean, it's got some serious issues in the city, but you do have a lot of things going well for it. The waterfront, Johns Hopkins University, and all the medical stuff there. So it's not a dead city, but it is still. I mean, it's pretty rough. Yeah, thank you for all the comments on the shirt. I do love the shirt. It's a horrifyingly. It's like rayon poly. It's disgusting shirt. Not a shirt you would wear in the South in the summertime. You would just emanate so much odor that nobody would come anywhere near you. Yeah, I mean, I put the subjective categories in this one just because, again, if it was just all the stats, it would pretty much just be the bigger states. I mean, I tried to put as many categories like rates, like per capita type things to make it a little more advantageous for not just the big places, but without the subjective ones, it's really tough for the. It would just almost be guaranteed the bigger places going farther. Owen, I will be in Boston in August. I'm not sure how long I'll be there, probably for at least a day or so. Shame on Sarah, that's right. I've seen like celebrities do guest spots on channels smaller than mine, so I thought, yeah, it's worth a worth a shot. The channel is big enough where I had enough clout to get in with her business side, not just a stupid fan web page or whatever. But everybody knows Pismo Beach from Bugs Bunny. Really? I saw a few comments like that. I'm surprised. Yeah, well, if multiple people said that, it must be true. So, uh, oh, the Twins won it in '91. That's right. Minnesota Twins won the baseball World Series '91. Okay. Yeah, Illinois. You got past the first round. You beat DC. Uh, but like I was saying before, a lot of self-loathers in Illinois. It's not that bad. People are leaving, but it's not that bad. I said this before. I really do think that Gary, Indiana, I know as crazy as it sounds, I think it'll become kind of a hipster, gentrified, cool spot to be in about 10 years because it's so close to Chicago. You can live there and be able to get to the city really easily. It's a lot cheaper to live there. You can buy a house for nothing there. I mean, you can buy a house for 50 grand, put 50 grand into it. It's going to be worth way more than 100. Um, and I mean, Gary's pretty rough, but some of it's not that bad. I mean, the area is right along the national park border with Indiana Dunes. I think there's a legit chance that it could become gentrified. I'm not saying that would be good, but I think that's something that I would almost expect to happen because people love Chicago. They just don't want to live in Chicago, because all the tax rates are high in Illinois. Actually, income tax is surprisingly not that high, but all the other taxes are really high. So you can move to Gary, still be able to see the skyline from your house, but not pay the Illinois taxes. Because people do, Chicago is a place that people are moving from, but they don't want to. I think people love Chicago for good reasons, but they're kind of leaving for job reasons or for to move somewhere cheaper. But yeah, a lot of people commenting about. I guess that Bugs Bunny Pismo Beast thing is legit. I, I watched Bugs Bunny a lot when I was a kid. Maybe I just didn't realize it because I'm so used to Pismo. Um, yeah, Lobo Dog, New Mexico. I mean, I love it, but like this kind of a category, it's not going to do well in any kind of economic categories. It's not doing well in terms of job growth, population growth, GDP per capita. It's got a high poverty rate. It's got a high statewide crime rate. It does pretty poorly in a lot of categories. Um, so I mean, I love it, but it's not set up well for something like this. Yeah, Tudor's Biscuit World. Don't mess around with that place. It's good. Real good. Tyler Wilkin, thank you very much for the super chat. I again, if I missed one of your super chats or stickers, I apologize. I absolutely appreciate everything. And you guys are just so cool. Vicente, South Carolina lost, I believe, to Alaska. Or Dylan Johnson, they locked themselves out. Well, yeah, I guess you could say something like this. You did knock yourself out. Hawaii has cool telescopes. It most certainly does. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Hawaii flag. I think it looks good. I just don't think it's a good flag for a U.S. state. It has a Union Jack, like the British flag in the corner of it, which, and I get the history of Hawaii and why it's there. It's just, I don't know, it doesn't look right. It looks fine in a Canadian province or on the Australian or New Zealand national flag because those are part of the Commonwealth. But I think it looks a little bit weird for the state flag, even though I think it's a decent looking flag. Mike Pappas, the whole trip will be probably 2 to 3 weeks. I'm not sure how much of that time is going to be in New England. I think we'll be in Maine for a week. Um, I want to spend at least 2 days in Boston, but I'm not sure how it's going to go. We're specifically skipping New York City. I love New York, but this isn't the trip for New York. So we're going to go right through there. I have a brother in Delaware. Probably visit him and start from Delaware, probably go up to Providence from there. I'm not sure how long that drive is, but not sure if I'll be in Vermont, but it'd be tough to miss it if I'm going to the other 5 New England states. But Russell, the states I had for my Final Four, actually, I don't remember. I did have Colorado. Georgia was who I had win the whole thing. I don't remember, honestly. I think it might have been California, Texas, Georgia, Colorado. No, that wouldn't have been right. I don't remember. But the states like Georgia and North Carolina are just so well-rounded. I'm not really surprised that they would do well in something like this. Yeah, Alex. Yeah, I think with the videos on Mexico, because I speak English and I do have subtitles for Spanish. I don't think it's going to be as popular. And there are a lot of folks that, a lot of Americans that have watched the videos on Mexico, which is cool. And actually, one of them was used for a high school geography class on Mexico, or when they were going over geography, talking about Mexico, they used that video. So I was like, oh, it's stressful. Grayson, it really depends on where you're starting from. If you want to do a road trip, I always recommend the first day of your trip, drive as far as you can reasonably. So for me, if I'm starting here in Tennessee, the first day I want to drive 12 hours. I want to get as far away from home as possible. So that way on the following days, I don't have to go as far. So I can get from Chattanooga to Oklahoma City in 12 hours. But the next day, maybe go to Oklahoma City just to the panhandle of Oklahoma, just a few hours, and then spend the day there hiking or Black Mesa, whatever. Then go a few hours to New Mexico, a few hours, because I was able to cover so much ground the first day. So I always recommend getting as far away from home as possible. So if you're starting from the east, on the East Coast, just hit one of the interstates, go west as far as you can, and then do slower amounts the subsequent days. If you're from the east, I would definitely hit national parks if you haven't seen them, if you're interested in that. I like a good mix of cities and towns and national parks and less known nature sites. Nick Jones, yes, I do absolutely need to visit the Boundary Waters canoe area. It says right along the Minnesota-Ontario border, and it's basically an international park. You go across Ontario, it's still protected as well. I mean, it's like Mecca for canoeists. Would love to do it, haven't done it yet. Thoughts, Ice Trays Ace, thoughts on Milwaukee. Of all the big cities I've been to, Milwaukee and Portland are the two I've spent the least amount of time in. So I've only been there twice, and one time was just for an afternoon. And it was like 10 years ago. So I'm not the most familiar with Milwaukee of all the big cities. I remember having a picnic lunch along the lakefront there downtown. I remember driving the wrong way on a one-way street. Like the only time I've ever done that was in downtown Milwaukee. But yeah, I'm not super familiar with it. Cameron Doyle, thank you very much for the super chat. If you're going for a weekend trip from Pittsburgh, like I was just saying, though, I'd go as far as you can reasonably. If it's just for a weekend, you don't want to spend 12 hours, but um, you can get from Pittsburgh to, if you want to see cities, I mean, you can get to Chicago not too difficultly. Um, I mean, the UP of Michigan is really nice. It's not that long of a drive. It's going to be a good day's drive, but not like a 14 hours in the car. Upstate New York, and also I always recommend, if you haven't, go across into Canada. I mean, Toronto is not that far for most people in the Northeast to get to. Great place to visit. Um, yeah, I was thinking while I was doing this series, my three favorite cities are Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. So between the U.S. and Canada, my three favorite cities are all Canadian. Um, TP Trade, Tea Parade, most underrated part of the U.S. Um, I think kind of in general, the Midwest. I mean, the Midwestern states are pretty boring. I mean, the Great Plains, especially, but boring doesn't mean bad. It's just, boring. So the Dakotas, I think, are much prettier in the western half of the state. Nebraska is pretty in the western half of the state. Missouri has a lot of great limestone and caves and a lot of water. So I think the Midwest in general. Oklahoma is prettier than a lot of people think. Iowa, Iowa's not the prettiest girl to dance, but I mean, she's nice. Um, Kim, looking for a cold, dry state to move to. Well, anything in the West will be dry, and the farther north you go, the cold. Um, so, I mean, a lot of folks don't consider New Mexico to be cold. It gets pretty cold in the winter, but um, I think that would be all right. Um, Montana's becoming more popular now. Wyoming, I mean, they won't let you move there. um, but yeah, Oregon and Washington are going to be much wet during this. The western portions they will be much more wet during the winter. Um, I just think the Rocky Mountains in general are going to be cold and dry during the winter, so you don't have that much snow unless you're on the windward side of a mountain. But um, I think for the most part, that's if you can put up with the cold, it's going to be really cold, but it's a good spot. Do I prefer Phoenix or Tucson? Definitely Tucson. Phoenix is in that same category of cities, kind of like Dallas, where I'm just not real big on it. Orlando, they're big cities, but they don't offer big city stuff. So I actually have a video on that coming up in April. It's going to be about uh, cities I think are the best and worst based on different types of criteria. General T, the most overrated city. Well, I'm going to say it again. I think it's Orlando or Dallas. I mean, those are the ones I always go back to. Is like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Eggy, I've been to Austin. I go to Austin a lot because just halfway between where I live and where I go out to visit in California. So I've been there many times, probably, I mean, 7 or 8 times since 2000. It's changed a lot. I mean, a lot. I would say 20 years ago, it was one of my favorite cities in the size range. And each time I go back, it's a little bit lower on the list. I mean, it's still a great place. I just think what I worry about Austin is because I love San Francisco so much. And it used to be a city of hippies and musicians. And then you had the banks. The banks were the high rises in downtown. That's what the city was. It was hippies, musicians, and banks. And Austin was hippies, musicians, a state government. And so tech came into San Francisco and kind of priced out the hippies and musicians. And the same thing is happening in Austin. Tech is pricing out the hippies and musicians, and a lot of the musicians are moving to Nashville, which is much cheaper. Not much, but it's a little bit cheaper than Austin. And so I'm worried it's kind of losing its soul. That's kind of losing its identity with some of what made. Cause you see those bumper stickers, "Keep Austin Weird." I mean, what made it weird were all those hippies and musicians. Willie Nelson is probably like the most, you know, stereotypical Texan ever. That's kind of what Austin has been, but it's turning into something different. I'm not as big on it, even though it's even more popular now. Um, I'm just kind of concerned that in 10, 15 years, it's going to be a bit much. But I still do like it. I mean, it went from one of my absolute favorites to it's pretty good. Um, Joey Seinfeld. I actually have a lot more international viewers than I thought. You can check on the analytics of your channel to see where people are watching from, and a lot more are from Europe and South America than I thought. It still is mostly Americans, Canadians, but decent amount of South Americans. It probably is because I only translate into Spanish, so maybe that's why there's more viewers from South America. Of course, you can just use a regular old translating system or app. It won't look as good, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people contacted me today or yesterday saying, I can't watch the stream because it's going to be past midnight where we live. So I'm assuming that's going to be Europe or I'm not even sure where. But if this is too late for them, and it's probably overseas. MW, yes, I will be in Portland. I think we'll be spending the night in Portland, Maine. My mother-in-law is flying into Portland, I think. I'm not sure about the details, but we will definitely be in Portland. All right. Milwaukee is drunker than Chicago. There's a tournament right there. Who's the drunkest? Yeah, New England in August. I'm looking forward to it. That's a great time to go because it's just past the main tourist season. I feel that this summer is anywhere is going to be busier than it would normally be. Because think how many folks didn't travel last year during summer, that things got pushed back a year. So I think summer type destinations are going to be extra busy this summer. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that'd be my guess. So I think August won't be too bad. David, yes, I'm going to fill out the bracket and put the final bracket up on my website. Yeah, Chris Ing, I know. I'm sorry, man. Wisconsin's not happy with me. Not only did I pick them poorly in their round, but then Minnesota wins the whole thing. Nothing personal. I mean, I like Wisconsin, but that's just how it works out. Aaron asked, how often do I have to buy new cars with all that mileage? Not that often. I mean, we had an 08 Subaru Forester that went like 240,000 miles before it even had to go to the shop one time. So that went on at least 10, 15 cross-country road trips. And we're pretty picky about the cars we get. We want somebody that's going to be pretty reliable. That's going to be the first thing. So don't have to replace them very often. My wife has a Subaru now. It's, we just like the peace of mind, I guess, of having a car that's going to be pretty reliable. Yeah, I didn't use a random number generator during this because I took out I came up with 75 categories originally, and some of them I took out after doing a dry run of the tournament. They just did not work. This will be impossible. So I took a bunch out, like 20 of them out, And so to do the generator, you couldn't. Would just have to keep redoing it. It wouldn't have been that big of a deal, but that's why I didn't do it. Yeah, Nate, I love New Mexico. It's my favorite state overall. I have a whole video on that. Um, just kind of it's a weird state. I like it. I like the climate, the food. People are really laid back. Um, the Joe, would I ever feel confident driving a Tesla out west? That's a good question. That's the only real negative for me with electric cars is that none of them have a long enough range. So it's great if it goes 300 miles because you can just drive to work, drive home, and charge it when you get home. But um, for road tripping, it's not the best. I think the technology isn't quite there for cross country road tripping, especially like you said in the West. You'll have to stick to interstates. Yeah, I mean, you have to. I don't know. There's so many parts of the West where there's not even gas stations for 100 miles. So I'm not sure how often you're going to get the charging stations. Um, so I would not be comfortable doing that yet, unless I was only going a little bit each day and then stopping somewhere and enough time to charge, but do stuff while I'm there. But I'll be driving gas cars for at least several more years. Although I do believe by 2030, most car sales are going to be electric. Um, Colossal Origin. Yeah, I thought about doing just an overall worst to best ranking of states, but there's just too much to cover. It would just be it'd be too long. Excuse me, too long of a video. Um, uh, let's see, Jive GN. Yeah, Corpus Christi is. I mentioned it in a video where I was talking about the best small cities, and I put it in there. And people from Texas were like, "What are you doing? That place is terrible." So I thought it was kind of surprised that Texans don't like you saying negative things about Texas, but then they didn't like me saying positive things about Corpus Christi. I think it's because it's kind of divey. I mean, it's the beach near town or near downtown is kind of a dive bar feel, but I like a good dive bar, a good dive beach. It's not glamorous, but I do like the kind of historic downtown. It's got the oil refinery. It's not the nicest smelling things in the world, but um, overall, I do like it. Mustang Island State Beach is great. That's a great beach to camp on. JoJo from Texas, love your videos. Still waiting on Texas and Louisiana. I do have one on Texas coming up, but you have to imagine that's way more pressure on doing a Texas video than any other state. So I want to make sure it's good. Um, so yeah, it'll be coming up soon. I do a state video once a month, and so that'll be one of my next ones. But again, I want to make sure I get it right because you can't screw up Texas. They'll find you and come at you with pitchforks and torches. David Roberts. If you're starting from Texas, it really depends on for a road trip. Depends on what you want to see. If you want to see cities and other populated centers and go east, you're going to be a lot more people east and northeast of there. If what you want to see is scenery and nature and stuff, and head west. Um, so that's to start from Houston is you're right in the middle. So yeah, I'll take you what 12 hours to get across Texas, Houston to El Paso. It's a long drive. That's a full day driving. Caleb, what are some national parks and tourist areas that will be affected by climate change in the next 10, 20 years? Um, I really think, I don't know about the next 10 to 20 years, but Florida is going to really need to think about what they're going to do with hurricanes almost every year. It's going to get to the point where they're going to occur more often and they're going to be stronger. So that could really be bad for Florida because the state is dependent on tourism, and a big hurricane in September, October is going to knock out tourism for the winter and probably all the way into spring break. So um, I think 10 years is probably a little soon for that, but they need to be thinking long term. Um, Areas that have a lot of wildfires where there's also ski resorts. So you might have areas that are essentially burned down near or even the ski resort itself. So areas that are reliant on being in a wooded area that might catch fire. Um, those two things, hurricanes and wildfire areas, are the ones going to be the most affected for tourist areas. Ben Keats, what inspired me to study geography? I have no idea, honestly. When I was a little kid, my dad had a giant atlas, and I would just read it. I mean, I have no idea why. Actually, let me grab it. I still have it. So this giant atlas here, this it's not literally this exact one, but so it's just beautiful cartography. And I'd be this little kid with this thing in my lap that's bigger than me. But as far as why, I have no idea why. That was what um, I was interested in. And when I was a little kid, it was maps and cars. Those are the two things I was really into. And so you do like a Venn diagram of maps and cars, in the middle is road tripping. So that kind of makes sense that that's what I've done so much of. But I think it was just something that came naturally to me, to just be interested in maps. And I know I've heard from a lot of people in comments and gotten emails and stuff from people like, yeah, I'm the same way. I just started reading maps. I don't know why. um, yeah, I have no idea why. Just because I'm weird. But there are plenty of weird folks like me too. J.W. Allison. Yeah, El Paso is always one of the safest cities in the U.S., which is surprising to a lot of people because it's right across the border from Juarez, Mexico, which is one of the most dangerous cities in the world. And my hypothesis on that is that the big crime for Juarez is drug smuggling. So once the drugs are in the U.S., once they successfully smuggle it into the U.S., they're just going to go, 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 go. We don't want to. We're not going to stick around in El Paso where there's a ton of cops and border patrol. I mean, the border area is it's overrun with cops. It's pretty interesting. So I'm assuming once you've got the drugs over the border, the guns or whatever it is, you're going to just go because you're not probably selling them in El Paso. I think a lot of the crime is just getting away from there, just because they don't want to be in that enormous police presence. Um, so it's got its pros and cons. I mean, I think it works for El Paso because it's a big city and it would probably otherwise not be that safe. But some of the small towns in Texas, it's kind of, I don't know. I'm not comfortable with the fact how much border patrol there is down there. It's kind of disturbing because I mean, you could be 30 miles from the border and you're still being stopped by border patrol. They're sending drug dogs around your car. And it's like, we're 30 miles away from the border. But yeah, El Paso, I think benefits from that because it being a big city would probably be much more dangerous without that, all the extra border patrol presence. Chris Graziano, thank you very much. Yeah, people love this shirt. I saw a comment. I, I don't know where it was that said where it might have come from. So I can't remember what he said. There's a website, Castle Lord. Yeah, when I road trip, Love's truck stops are I think the best ones. There's lots of different chains. uh, Pilot, Flying J, TA. But Loves right now are the best ones. So they were either new or recently renovated in the past 5, 10 years. And there's always a pretty good convenience store and shop there. But as far as like knick-knacky kind of souvenirs, there's always some little just cheesy touristy trap kind of stuff, especially in the Western US when there's not many towns. You'll see like a bunch of billboards for things like The Thing in Arizona or Geronimo. I mean, there's so many of them. They're just really cheesy, and there's nothing great in them, but they are kind of fun because they're just so uh, classic road trippy. Hop, the highest posted speed limit sign I've seen. I know there is an 85 in Texas, but I haven't been on it. 80 is the most I've seen. And I really do think that the only reason Texas put that one, it's like an expressway that connects San Antonio to Austin. It's like 85 miles an hour. I guarantee you the only reason they put it at 85 is because Utah and Nevada have 80. So Texas had to be 85. I mean, if Utah and Nevada had 75, they'd be fine with 80. I guarantee you that's why Texas did that. So they can say, we have the highest one. 85, that's so dangerous. I mean, because if the speed limit is 85, people are going to be going 95. That's most cars are not designed to be good at those speeds. 80 is high enough, I think. But even in areas where the speed limits are that high, I've noticed that people don't really drive way more. I think once you get above 80, it's your car kind of tells you we don't really want to be going this fast. Unless you're like in a sports car, you're not really meant to be going that fast. Elizabeth Blanchett, thank you very much. That means a lot to me when someone says stuff like that. Because I want this channel to be educational. I mean, I want to make it fun, but ultimately it's going to be about geography. So if you're learning stuff, that's great because that's the point. And also I learn stuff too as I go along with these videos. I've been doing this for 3 years, and I know a lot more today than I did 3 years ago. So I'm doing it for education, but also for me too. Um, what inspired me to study geography, Ben? I was always into math. I didn't know geography was something you could study. I was like, what can you study with this? Because even me loving it, I was under the impression a lot of folks are, where it's just trivia stuff. It's not you can't do anything with that. And then when I was in college, I had a professor named Dave Howell, and he was this goofy geography guy, and he could tell I was really into it. And he's like, you can study geography. There's other classes you can take. You can go this, not just these 101s. You can major in this, and it's all the stuff you can do. And I really owe it all to him. I mean, I'm going to get in touch with him and do a little video with him. Really cool guy. And I would have never even thought to study geography. And I transferred to Cal State Northridge, which is in Los Angeles, and it's a really great geography department. And then to graduate school at South Carolina, another great geography department. So without Dave Howell, I would have never been able to pursue geography as a career. What's worse, hurricanes or wildfires? Well, they're both pretty bad. I would say hurricanes are worse. I would say hurricanes are probably the worst overall disaster. Well, I guess a volcano would be the worst, but of the ones that happen regularly, that'd be hurricanes because they're so huge. I mean, they're the biggest storm systems on Earth, and they attack or they hit where people live. Like wildfires can be scary. I mean, if your house is surrounded by fire, that's got to be just incredibly frightening. But not a ton of people live in these wilderness mountain areas. But I mean, there's 23 million people in Florida. What, 10 million? Well, 8 million on the Texas coast, several more million between Louisiana and Alabama coast. I mean, what, 5 million on the Carolina coast? I mean, there's so many people that live in the coastal areas. So one big hurricane will do a ton of damage. I mean, that's why California has the most disasters, but most of the wildfire disasters don't do a ton of monetary damage. I mean, obviously, if your house was one of the ones that burned, that's horrible, of course. But in terms of widespread damage, it's not as bad as a hurricane or a big flood. And so, like the Cedar Rapids flood in Iowa a few years back, that's bad. So stuff with water, I think, is going to be the worst. Flooding and hurricanes. Um, Wind is going to be second worst. Earthquakes are really bad, but they don't happen anywhere near as often. Of course, again, volcanoes will be the absolute worst. If there's a big eruption somewhere, that's no, that's not good. Panda, yes, I've been to Pennsylvania many times. Yeah, one of my friends used to live in State College. I would go up there and visit him. Um, I've driven through Pittsburgh several times. Philadelphia. My brother again lives in Delaware. We would go up to Philly to eat cheesesteaks. So yeah, I like Pennsylvania a lot. It's a very pretty state. That north central part is really, really wooded. I mean, for a state with over 12 million people, it's got some nice areas that are just woods. And I like Pittsburgh. It's one of those cities that's kind of a lot of folks don't like it. I like all the cities I like are kind of like dive bars, like St. Louis, Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, El Paso. These are cities that aren't the nicest places in the world, but I like them. They're little more interesting to me. Jack, yes, I did study geography in college, so I do have a degree in that. Blue Buttons, I have been to Glacier National Park. Um, I was there just a couple years ago, and it was weird because we were there in early May, and in a normal year, the main road to the park is closed through June or like to mid-June because it's just snow. We were there in early May, and there was not a drop of snow. There was nothing. There was no snow. So the roads were closed, but there was no reason for them to be closed other than the fact that this park wasn't staffed. The people that come to staff it during the summer are either doing something else during the winter, or they're like, say, Everglades or warm weather national park. But so the roads are we're hiking on the road. We're like walking in the street as they're hiking because the roads were closed. So really beautiful park, really nice lakes. I mean, just really good vistas, great hiking. Yeah, wonderful place to visit. It's far. It takes a long time to get there. We were surprised it took as long to get there from Yellowstone as it did. Yeah, Florida is going to be the one that has the most issues with sea level rise. It's not very high as it is anyway. M. McC, any idea what it is about the way your mind works that makes you more interested in geography? I don't know. I don't know, honestly. I'm terrible at math. I have no artistic ability, so I can't draw anything. Um, I couldn't get through calculus in college. I was going to flunk it, had to drop it. So I just think my mind is more spatially oriented. Um, like you can drop me in the middle of a big city, pretty much anywhere in the U.S., and give me about 5 minutes off. I'll know my way around. Um, but man, yeah, I can't do college algebra. So yeah, I don't know what it is. It's just the way I'm wired, but I don't really know. Yeah, I couldn't tell you why. Um, yeah, Cascadia earthquake and big tsunami is a big concern. Um, like I actually wrote the tsunami response and evacuation plan for Monterey County, California. And so when I'd have my normal setup with behind me is a tsunami evacuation route sign. Those are the ones we put up around the low-lying beach areas. Um, so that's a big concern. I mean, a huge earthquake. So you don't have to feel the earthquake to be affected by the tsunami. So there could be an earthquake, 1,000 miles away, but it creates wave action. So a tsunami isn't a giant wave like that. It's a wall of water. So it's almost like a giant storm surge from a hurricane. So it can be really scary because you don't know it's coming and it doesn't look like a wave. It just looks like a giant wall of water. So the bigger the earthquake, the bigger the chance of a tsunami will be. And there are certain parts of the West Coast that are much more susceptible to it. Um, Crescent City, California is the one that got hit the most. I mean, of course, Alaska is going to have a lot of threat from tsunami. So, um, yeah, it's scary. The warnings have gotten better. So as long as you have some type of something on your phone to get weather warnings, which you should, tsunami warnings come way in advance. So it should be okay. Um, yeah, when the Yellowstone caldera goes off, that's it. That's it. We're done. Adam H, thank you very much. Those kind of comments mean a lot to me. So I'm glad you're able to watch it together. My favorite town in Wyoming. Uh, I don't know. I haven't. Hmm. I mean, Jackson's the big tourist town. It's pretty fun, but you can. It's definitely has a tourist feel to it. Laramie's the college town, which I kind of like that little college town. Trey Jackson, Eastern Kentucky is rough. I literally just drove through it a month ago. Coming back from West Virginia, I took back roads through Kentucky, uh, southeastern part of the state. It's very very poor. Um, it's the same level of poverty as you're going to get in the Mississippi River Delta and some of the reservations in the West. It's very poor. I think the biggest issue there has been um, that coal can't be everything, and yet the people that live there want coal to be everything. And I mean, it's kind of sad because when I go to West Virginia, people are like, "All right, it's gonna come back. It's gonna make a comeback," and they genuinely believe that coal is gonna make a comeback. But I mean, it's not. So it's tough because the mindset there, I think, has to change. You cannot just keep relying on coal. It just isn't working. It's been going down for 30 years, and it's affected the state of West Virginia more because it's all coal. Kentucky has been coal's of course huge, but it isn't just coal. So, but that portion of the state is kind of the one that's being left behind. Louisville, being a big city, has a lot of stuff going on. Lexington has a lot of growth, a lot of high tech stuff. But those rural towns in the southeast, I mean, the opioid epidemic is really, really bad there. The amount of drug overdoses there is like, in East Kentucky and Southwest West Virginia, is just really, really high. But yeah, as far as answers, I don't know. That's just me telling you that what you already knew. But yeah, if the answers were simple, they'd be fixed. But I think it does start with the mindset, though. Just kind of accept the fact that coal is not going to be around forever. I mean, it'll literally be around forever, but we won't need it forever. Jack Brady, best part of Colorado. Um, Man, I mean, I like it all. I'm definitely more of a Western Colorado kind of guy. I mean, obviously Denver is in the eastern portion of the state, but um, the Colorado Plateau area, like around Mesa Verde National Park and Black Canyon, or the Gunnison National Park, is really nice. Um, but yeah, if you're going to road trip around there, I would just, what is it, US 50 that parallels I-70, goes from like Pueblo to, I'm not sure where it goes, Grand Junction. Um, but yeah, I'm going to actually, that's going to be where I'm going to be on part of my road trip next month. All right, Colossal Origin, thank you very much again for the super chat. Um, the best state in the Midwest. Well, obviously it's Minnesota. They're the best state in the country. So obviously they're the best in the Midwest. Um, but I mean, I think it is Minnesota because it's just why it did well in a competition like this is because it's so well rounded. It's got the strongest economy of the Midwestern states. It's got just the health statistics. I mean, it had the low cancer rate, the low obesity rate. The actually not really so low obesity, but high life expectancy. It's a happy state, healthy state, and it's one state where I've noticed like a lot of times people will complain about high taxes, and people in Minnesota tend to be, I'm sure there'll plenty to disagree, but it's like, well, we have high taxes, but you get what you pay for. And I think a lot of folks in Minnesota kind of feel that way. It is very high income tax, but I mean, it's a pretty nice state. So I would say it probably is the best. I like Michigan too. I'm just much more familiar with it. Favorite brewery in the U.S. That's I don't know honestly. I do like microbrews, but I don't really make it a point to stop at some when I'm on road trips because I'm usually going to bed reasonably early, and then getting up early to hit the road. So my days of partying on road trips is pretty much gone. Uh, DJ Reed, I'm a student at USC. Um, if you're saying I know you went there as well, I'm assuming you mean South Carolina. Um, yeah, I had a great time there. I used to always go to Congaree National Park, about a half an hour southeast of there. Great national park. Never anybody there. No entry fee. Great, easy hiking. Not even hiking. It's a boardwalk. You can just walk on it. And yeah, I mean, it's a great place to visit for half a day, for a full day. Longer trails where if you don't want to see anybody, you won't see many people there at all. But if you want to get back in there, but yeah, a lot of great stuff in Columbia. The northwestern part of town, Harbison State Forest, has a nice hiking and mountain biking. Dank Sargent, I have not been to every county in Tennessee. The only state I've been to every county in is South Carolina, because when I worked there, I worked for the state, and part of my job was to go to individual counties, especially the smaller ones, to help them out with their natural disaster response plans. Nick Juhas, my least favorite part of road trips. Um, I mean, I've done it so many times. I've kind of worked on how to get away from some of the annoying stuff. I know there's going to be construction and traffic somewhere along the way. So when it happens, I'm not that upset about it. Um, the worst, what the worst thing is storm systems travel west to east in the U.S., west of the wind belt. So when you were going east and you're like with the storm the entire time, that is really frustrating because especially when it's a big, heavy thunderstorm, that can be kind of dangerous. When you're going the opposite direction of the storm, you get through it much more quickly. But when you're kind of going along with it, it's kind of annoying. Evan, I do like the beaches of North Carolina. I know that they're not everybody's favorite, but what I like about the Outer Banks is that they're nice, wide, sandy beaches, but they're not overly developed. So if you've been to Myrtle Beach, you've been to anywhere in Florida, there's just high rises and just development everywhere. And Outer Banks is mostly national seashore, or it's really small town. So it's going to be like the beach houses and a wide expanse of sand before the ocean. So it's just not as busy. But if you're looking for that, a lot of people want Myrtle Beach, they want Miami Beach, they want to party and hang out, which is great too. But for me, I just like the relatively peacefulness of the Outer Banks. And it's basically one, well, while I have it out here, might as well. So basically what it is this road just goes all the way down here. And down here is a ferry that connects you back to the mainland. So If you drive down here, most people aren't going to use that ferry. So if you drive down this way, by the time you get down to here, there's nobody there. I mean, you just basically have the whole beach to yourself. Even up here, where it's mostly um, where a lot more folks go to, it's not that busy. But once you go farther south down, it's going to be pretty lightly visited. Covingworth, the most remote part of the world I visited. Well, it's going to be somewhere in the U.S. because I haven't traveled overseas at all. Um, so it's going to be somewhere. I'm not even sure where that would be in the U.S. Probably the middle of the desert somewhere. Southeastern Utah is probably the most remote I've been. Every day is like a field trip. Thank you very much. I appreciate the support. Causal Origin, thank you once again. I mean, you're super cool. I appreciate all the super chat. Um, Jeff, I stick to the speed limit for the most part. I'll usually set my cruise control to maybe 4 miles an hour over the speed limit. There's nowhere in the U.S. where you're going to get pulled over for less than 10 miles an hour over the speed limit on the interstate. Back roads, you know what you're going to get. But on interstate, as far as I know, everywhere is going to give you 10 miles an hour. But just to be, if it's 75, I'll go 79. If it's 70, I'll go 74, kind of thing. So I'm pretty chill on road trips. It's not worth getting stressed out about. I used to be a lot more, I got to get there in time. But you just got to realize something's going to go wrong and you're not going to get there on time. Brendan Church, the best time to visit Yellowstone? Um, the fall, definitely the fall. I would say mid to late September or early October. A lot fewer tourists. The days are still long, at least in September. And it's nice during the day. It can be cold at night. You can get snow in September, but it's going to be much, much less busy. I mean, because it can be a pain in the butt to travel to Yellowstone when it's crowded. It's still nice. I wouldn't discourage it even when it's crowded, but it's crowded. Josh, best things to do in Visalia, California. Well, she ain't the most exciting town in the world. It's my hometown. I think it's a nice place, but it's not exactly exciting. Um, I mean, the best thing to do there is to drive to the mountains half an hour away. Uh, it is really boring. I'm on the subreddit for them, and there's always people complaining about how boring it is. It is boring. It's not like you wouldn't expect it. That's not what you expect a California town to be like. I think it's a great place to live. It's really cheap compared to pretty much anywhere else in the U.S. But it's cheap for a reason. It's boring. Churchill, Manitoba. No, I've not. I'm not even familiar with Churchill, Manitoba. But I'm hoping to finally do a cross country road trip across Canada. Um, next, it wouldn't be this year; it'd be next year. Stephen Lee, thank you very much for the super chat. What city has changed the most over the past 10 years? Yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, I really think Austin has changed a lot, and perhaps not for the better, at least in my opinion, because there's still plenty of live music there. It's still a great music town. There's still, the great music clubs and Sixth Street's a lot of fun, but it's just not, the music isn't the number one thing. I mean, it's always the government and University of Texas, but as far as the non-government stuff, it was always the music was the first thing, and it's kind of being pushed back. So I think it's changed a lot. So I think that's probably the place that's changed the most over the past 10 years. Texas in general, the Dallas suburbs are just ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, Texas, just people are moving there, so it's going to change a lot. a lot of Texans are moving to Tennessee. So I think what's happening is people are moving to Texas, and Texas like, we're getting out of here. We're going to Tennessee. I mean, half our neighborhood is people are from Texas. Most people don't know what Myanmar is, but people know what Burma is. Well, yeah, I mean, if they even know what Burma is, that's pretty good. I'm not going to give anybody too much flack if they know what Burma is. Talk about a man, that's a man place I don't know very much about. I probably don't know any more about it than what's been on the news. It's just such a reclusive society. Hank Chase, Colorado doesn't always give you 10 miles an hour on I-7. I know there's that stretch on I-70 where it's really, really windy and it goes down to 55. It's almost like a speed trap. You should be going slower because it's so windy. But um, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't ever really go over 5 miles an hour over, so I don't know too much. But I've never been pulled over or known anybody that got it from unless it was a construction zone, unless without going 10 miles an hour over. Yeah, Virginia, it's so weird when you hit the state line. Radio detectors are illegal. It's like, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna throw it out the window, turn it off. Some cars come with it. Yeah, Jared, I love Google Earth. I mean, it's just something fun to look at. I mean, just to see what place they're like. But that's why I was talking about that Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's basically Google Earth, but you're just flying over it at a low angle. Um, so I'm really excited about doing that, doing streaming that, because this is really really cool. Sean Connor, thank you very much. Revitalize the Rust Belt. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think Ohio has the best. Um, they're doing the best right now of it because they've lost so many factory jobs, and right now a big thing in Columbus is making automated factories. So basically, instead of companies moving jobs to China or wherever to save on labor costs, we can build automatons here in Ohio. So have automated factories. So you're still not paying as much in labor costs. So you can keep the jobs here without moving them. I think that's probably a good way to do it. Pittsburgh has been up and down. It's down right now. I'm not really sure what the answers are. I mean, Cleveland is, it's okay, but it's not really improving a ton. I mean, Detroit, I think, has improved a lot, but it was down so low that it's still not that great. I think Detroit kind of had a hit rock bottom before it bounced up type thing, but kind of like Kentucky. I mean, if the answers were simple, I mean, they'd be fixed. But um, I don't know. I think the movement of people is also kind of fluid right now. People are moving from north to south. Uh, People will get tired of that, and then they'll move back. I mean, it's just kind of how it is. Um, but I mean, as far as specific ideas and policies, I mean, I couldn't help it, man. All right, I'm getting behind here. Oh, behind me is just as my bar. The bottles are all different kinds of Sierra Nevada, and There's actually a really cool micro brew in Chattanooga called Hutton and Smith, and all of their beers have like a geology or a rock climbing term. Paleo Pilsner, Rocktoberfest. There's a igneous IPA, the Good Schist. So it's a really good microbrew, and it's just geology. So I think it's pretty cool. All right, I'm going to just do a couple more, and then I'm going to have to wrap this thing up. The Joe asked if a members only thing before, how would be able to be a part of that. It's going to be, you've probably been on channels that had like the little join thing underneath it next to subscribe, and it's kind of like a Patreon, but it's only through YouTube. And so the way, I mean, you set the prices. I mean, it's like mine's going to be like $2 or $3 a month. I'm trying to go low. They encourage you to go like 10, 15, 20. Who's going to spend $25 a month on the channel? So I'm keeping it super cheap. I'm basically doing it so that in chats like this, I can get to everything. I mean, there will be fewer people on there, and I can answer every question. I just, even with moderators, I can't keep up with everything. I'm trying to get to all the super chats, but I think with the membership, it'd be much easier to do that. And also, I just don't want to have a lot of ads. I don't want to, the ads I run on the videos are like the short ones, or the ones you can, if they're longer, you can skip them. And I don't have the ads that cut in the middle of the video. And I don't like the product placement ones, or I just gave a pitch to these guys. But the ones like where in the middle of the video, the host will kind of go on for like a minute about something. I'm trying to avoid that kind of stuff. So I thought maybe doing the memberships would be all right. I'll see how it goes. I mean, might not go over too well, but I think like a once a month or however so often private chat would be pretty cool. But yeah, when it's actually up, you'll be able to hit that join tab and do that. I was hoping it'd be up tonight, but Tony Soprano, thank you very much. Appreciate the super chat. Jorge, my favorite NFL team. I don't really watch the NFL. I used to be really into college football when I was at South Carolina, because it's just, the Southeast is really big on college football. So if I was doing football, hanging out, tailgating, going to the game on Saturdays, I didn't want to do it again on Sunday. So I grew up, everybody was a 49ers fan. Everybody. This was back in the Joe Montana, Jerry Rice days, and I just didn't want to root for him because everybody rooted for him. So I was just like, I'm not gonna be not too big on it. But for me, I just don't watch football as a sport anymore, because I just thought it was more of like a communal, like a party out here, hang out with your friends and stuff. But NBA, I shouldn't admit this, but Sacramento Kings, yeah, you have to really hate yourself to be a Sacramento Kings fan. Trey, if I could not live in Tennessee, South Carolina, or California, where would it be? It would ultimately be up to where it'd be good for my wife to go. I mean, I'm able to, be almost anywhere and do what I do. She has limited, she can't just go anywhere. So, but I think both of us would agree we're southern half of the country kind of people. We're both pretty wimpy when it comes to the cold. I mean, I'm California and she's from South Carolina. We don't do well in the cold. Speak of the devil. So yeah, probably New Mexico. I mean, that's my favorite state. She likes it too. So, What's my favorite state in the Pacific Northwest? Meaning between both of them? Um, I mean, honestly, for being from California, I haven't been up to Oregon and Washington as much as you might think. As most of my road trips, I would go east. I would just keep traveling east and not so much north because you wouldn't go very far north before once you get north of Vancouver, you can't really drive that much more. Um, but I do like Oregon and Washington. I like the Oregon coast a lot. Really beautiful drive. All right, just a couple more. Richmond, Virginia. Um, I like it. Probably about 15 years ago. It was, I don't know, it wasn't that nice. Um, it's one of those places that's been gentrified, like a lot of places have. I think it's a place where gentrification has been maybe two steps forward, one step back. I think it's been overall better for the city, but it is much more expensive. It used to be really cheap to live there, but DC is so expensive. People are moving to get away. Richmond has, it's got some decent job opportunities, much better than the coastal areas of Virginia. So it's a lot better than it used to be. I like it, but though I had not been there in good 5-6 years, I'll be back this August when I'm going up to Maine. I'll be passing through on the way to Delaware. So I'll probably stop in Richmond because it has been several years since I've been there. Thoughts on Richmond, California? Well, that's a different story there. Yeah, it's pretty rough. It's a industrial kind of lower income suburb of Oakland. Um, yeah, it's not that nice. Jolski, I don't have any specific favorite road trip music. I've uh, I've never had a car that had either satellite radio or USB drive. You can plug in and just have your. So I've always just had to do CDs. Um, so the ones that are the longest CDs I don't have to change as often are the ones I like to play. Um, I'm assuming the next car I have, which won't be for at least a few years, will be something that has a way to play things digitally. But as of now, no, I still CDs in the car. All right, Polar Bear Gaming, St. George, Southern Utah. That place has grown a lot. I mean, I go through there almost every year, and man, it's a lot bigger each time I go back. I'm not sure what's driving the growth there, honestly. I don't know. There's not a lot of jobs there. I don't know what it is. It's a beautiful area. Zion's about an hour away. Vegas is maybe a couple hours away. So I don't know what exactly is driving the growth there, but I mean, it's much larger than it used to be. Karsten, do I think Texas growth will eventually spread into Oklahoma? It kind of already is. If you look at a map of the I-35 corridor between Dallas and Oklahoma City, there's small towns, but they're growing. So I think there already is some growth. And you know, for me, Los Angeles is too big. And I think at some point people are going to be like, okay, Dallas is just too big. It's just I think it's already there, but um, I think people are just going to get sick of something that big. And Oklahoma City is much smaller, but it doesn't offer really anything less than Dallas. It's less hassle, really. So I can see Oklahoma City becoming much more big time, much bigger player on a national scale. I mentioned this in a bunch of videos. The state capitals with college towns are doing really well. I mean, I know Norman isn't right in the city, but it's a suburb. So I do think it's going to improve a lot. Tulsa's improved a lot too. So, I mean, I like Oklahoma. I think it's a state that you hear the names like, oh, Oklahoma, it's going to be a dump, but it's pretty nice. I like it. So, of course, I don't think anywhere wants to be the next Dallas, Fort Worth, or the next Los Angeles, but somewhere is going to be the next Dallas. Uh, Jared, I do watch a lot of YouTube. Actually, I don't really watch much TV and movies, or pretty much I'm only going to be watching YouTube or playing video games. So I watch a lot of stuff that is not geography related. I watch a lot of video games. I watch car stuff, and the ones that are kind of in the same genre, I like watching City Beautiful. It's about urban planning. Mr. Beach, which is a lot of history. So those are probably my two favorite ones. I used to watch Chicago Geographer. I love his channel, but he plays GeoGuessr, and I picked up some spoilers on how to play it from him. I was like, oh, I didn't want to know that. So I tend to not watch um, too many of the other. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about too many other channels, but I do like Mr. Beat and City Beautiful. Um, I do. And Chicago Geographer is great. I just don't want to get the spoilers on how to be good at GeoGuessr. Um, yeah, GeoWizard too. That's the other guy that he's incredibly good at. I picked up a spoiler from him too. I just stopped watching him. So, because like when I play GeoGuessr, I don't want to know the license plates. I don't want to know the bollards and other kind of the lane markings that they'll use to identify places. I want to go by just the geography, the signs, the just the stuff I'm seeing to deduce. But I was watching him, and he's like, "Oh, this is. I know that this is India because if it were Pakistan, it would be this." I was like, "Oh man, I didn't want to know that." Because now when I see it, I'm like, "Oh, well, this has to be India, obviously." And for Chicago Geographer, I picked up. I've since forgotten, thankfully, but it was talking about like the Google car, the one that does the street view for Nigeria, has a certain look to it or something. And he's like, every time I see that car, I know it's Nigeria. I was like, oh, I don't want to know that either. But I've since forgotten what that detail about the car was. Um, yes, Polar Bear Gaming. I got another one of those geographic state profiles coming up. Yeah, the State Street Mungers, the State Street on GeoGuessr is a lot of fun. State Street. I honestly do the world geography more on GeoGuessr because my channel is about the U.S. and I've traveled throughout most of the U.S. and I'm just more familiar with it. So I like to see the world when I play GeoGuessr. So I do the so I've not done the state streak as much, but my world streak is pretty high. I have a pretty good world streak. Um, Jared and Sea Salt. Generally, my favorite games are action RPGs. So Breath of the Wild is my favorite game of all time. The Mass Effect original trilogy. Um, I like Borderlands 2, Resident Evil 4. So games are like action games, but there's not just action. Yeah, EE, New Hampshire. I wasn't sure. I wasn't aware that New Hampshire was growing that much. Massachusetts has a faster growing population. I mean, I'm not sure with what happened last year. If people from New York and Boston are moving there, but um, yeah, I think how it works, I guess, up there is Massachusetts has high income tax and New Hampshire has high property tax. So it's pick your poison. But yeah, I'm not too familiar with the recent population growth over the past year in New Hampshire. It's because um, I haven't been up there in the past year. But before the pandemic, it wasn't growing that much. Vermont is losing population. New York, Connecticut losing population. Rhode Island barely gaining. So, um, yeah, interesting that New England is just kind of flatline in terms of population. MW, Oakland, Sacramento, San Jose. Very unpopular opinion here, but I'd go with Sacramento. Oakland and San Jose, they're huge cities, part of the Bay Area, and it's just too much. I like big cities to visit. I love Atlanta. I'm going down to Atlanta tomorrow to do big city stuff, but I love coming back from Atlanta. I love to spend a day there, but yeah, I mean Oakland, San Jose, it's just too big. Sacramento is still manageable, and I think people should give it a. I think California should give it a second look. Don't skip over Sacramento to move to Raleigh. I mean, move across the country when your state capital there is a lot nicer than people think. Was I ever the smart kid in class? I mean, in some subjects. Uh, yeah, I could be a little punk when I was in school. I was kind of like the kind of cliche redhead getting in trouble, mischievous, and I was kind of Ferris Bueller-ish. It's just kind of always up to something. Yeah, Bryce Canyon, Arches National Park. Those are two of my favorite ones. Um, I'll I'll be going by both of them next month. Probably not going to stop at either one this time, but I love visiting both. Um, Bryce Canyon, I think, gives you the best gorgeous scenery with the least effort. It's one main road that goes through the park. You just pull off to the side and you get fantastic views. And it's the Grand Canyon can be a little bit of a hassle if you're just doing the, you know, hop from one viewpoint to the next. But Bryce is just, it's a better, I think, more scenery without having to do as much. Arches is it's either going to be super crazy busy around the main arches, or you have to kind of get back in the back country to see some of the smaller arches and get away from the crowds. So I like it both. Arches you can see a lot in a half a day. Luke, no, I have not been to Niles, Ohio, and I'm not sure where that is. It's a suburb of Toledo. I don't know. Actually, I'm not sure where it is. PR, no, never thought this channel would get to where it is. I mean, when I started this channel, it was just going to be something very niche, very small, really nerdy, just small community, and it took off last year. Really surprised me, and in hindsight, I would change the name of the channel. I don't like the name of the channel when it's my video game handle. That's how it came. It's a silly name for a video game handle, and when the channel was small, it's also kind of silly. But the channel is like a medium sized channel now. It just sounds kind of arrogant, and I don't like the name. Um, which is why I always say I don't say I'm Geography King. I think that's the name of the channel because I don't know. It sounds I don't like it. I wish I could go back and change it, but I never thought it would be. I mean, 90,000. That's crazy. 90,000 subscribers. That's crazy. Okay, Niles near Youngstown. Okay, I have not been there. Youngstown is not the prettiest city in the world. All right, let's answer two more. Um, King Matt, Minneapolis or St. Paul? Oh man, I think Minneapolis is more interesting as a place to visit. There's more stuff to do, but I can imagine St. Paul being a better place to live if you live there. Um, I do like the downtown Minneapolis. You can walk around the area that has like the Bob Dylan mural. That area around there, you can cross the bridge. Um, can't remember the name of that part of town. You have like Dinky Town, which is like the college town party area. But so I think it's more interesting to visit Minneapolis, but St. Paul is. I think it seems like it's maybe a little bit nicer. I don't know. Um, All right, so this is the last one I'm gonna answer. It's been going on for quite a while. Um, Thoughts on Washington D.C. I'm actually gonna have a video on this pretty soon because it's DC statehood is been talked about. So I wanted to get into you know the pros and cons of it, and just some of the details that go along with it. Um, yeah, I mean, I like it. It's a fun place. It's like pretty much any other big city where I love to visit, but would love to not live there. um, and to for DC to not live in the city, to not live in the metro, you have to be pretty far away. You have to be well over an hour away to not be in the metro. But yeah, it's great. I think it's a lot of fun. I think walking the mall is something that every American should do. It's great. From the Lincoln Memorial to the Capitol building is just a really nice walk. A lot of great museums. Georgetown area, just kind of an interesting upscale kind of part of town, really historic. So, yeah, I like DC, but again, I just could not live there. Just way too big. Um, yeah. So yeah, I do have to call it quits, man. I'm sorry. It's been about 3 hours. Um, Real quick, Jared. I have a video about geography careers. Check that one out. I think it's a pretty good video. It talks about how you can study geography and stuff you can do with it. Oh, well, all right, guys. A lot of fun. I thank you guys for being here. All the super chats. I know I couldn't get to all the questions, but I just do appreciate all the support, and I'm glad you guys enjoy the videos. And I'll be posting. I'm not sure when the next one's coming up. Probably this weekend. But yeah, I mean, it's just so humbling to see people that are into the subject, into the channel, and I just really thank all of you for joining me with this and just being so supportive of the channel. And look for an announcement on the memberships. I know it's not going to be for everybody, but just trying to think of ways to generate some revenue without doing too many ads or Patreon or those sponsored things in the middle of where people talk. I don't know. I can't do that. But yeah, guys, again, thank you very much. And look for my next video coming up. And if, need anything, let me know. All right, later.